Hey, we're just a couple minutes late, so we'll call the meeting of April 28th, 2026 to order. Jen, will you take roll call, please?
Councilmember Alberish,
Here.
Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Councilmember Gold, Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Here. Mayor Pro Tem Gold, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, very good, thank you. I think with that, we will open up public comment, so persons wishing to address the council on any non-agendized items that are in the jurisdiction of the town are invited to do so. Please note, however, that the council is not able to undertake extended discussions on non-agendized items. Those items can be referred to staff for future action on a future agenda. This communication period is limited to 5 persons, 3 minutes each, and we're going to hold to that because we have a big agenda again tonight. So everyone else who would like to speak after that, you can speak after regular business is done. So thank you for that. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on any item that is not agendized tonight? Come on up. Thank you.
Good evening,
Good
council
evening.
members. I'm just going to read out my notes, just to be precise. Oh, thank you. Name. Yeah, I got it. Yeah. My name is Tarira Kachachuan. I live at 164 Badet Road, immediately adjacent to the proposed new resident at 156 Badet Road. I respectfully request that this comment be included verbatim in the record. I will provide a written copy. I'm asking the council to look into serious procedural problems with the SRB review conducted on November 17 of last year. The ASRB was told the project had no code violations, no exceptions were anticipated, that everything was that was inaccurate. The plans presented contained objective code violations. There were issues involving setbacks and development on slope steeper than 35% steepness. There's some substantial retaining walls that should not have been allowed. The ASRB packet also contained factual errors, including stating the property was connected to the sewer when it remained on a septic still. There were just a lot of errors on that information packet provided to the SRB. Because the board was given inaccurate information, it made recommendations based on a flawed record. Equally important, the project was not meaningfully evaluated under section 153.911 of the Woodside Municipal Code. The required design criteria intended to minimize grading, protect privacy, preserve neighborhood character. Those standards were not properly applied, and adjacent neighbors are bearing the consequences. I respectfully ask the council to help return the project back to the ASRB for proper review based on code compliant plans and accurate information, so a lawful and sound design can be implemented and not later challenged, avoiding further delay for the property owner. Legal proceedings would be costly and hostile to all parties. Things already gotten very hostile and should be avoided. But it is also not reasonable for adjacent neighbors, us, to absorb severe privacy and property impacts without seeking a fair remedy. This is why I'm asking for corrective action now during the design phase. As section 10.40 of the Woodside Municipal Code states, residents have a right to expect code compliance without confrontation with neighbors. I'm not asking to stop development. I'm asking for a lawful review, fair treatment, adherent to the town's code for the benefits of neighbors, the applicant,
Okay.
and the town.
Thank you. Yeah, I've heard about this from 3 or 4 staff members in the last, got to be 4 or 5 months now, I'm guessing. My understanding is you can't appeal a conceptual design, but there will be a time when you can have a timely appeal on setbacks and easements, and that's in the next phase of this. And I think staff is committed to making sure that you're informed and about when you can make a timely appeal, is my
But it's
recollection.
not
Is
just
that-
the code that was not adhered
Yeah, well, okay,
to.
well, we're not going to have a conversation about it, but is there anything else that staff would like to add? Or does that pretty much capture it?
I could just add that, yes, you're correct. It went through conceptual design review. At the concept part of design review, it looks at the basic design of a project. They give feedback on the design evaluation criteria. The ASRB did that. They made a recommendation to move forward to formal design review. The formal design review part of the process is when all of the detailed information is looked at to make sure for code compliance. So the applicant has submitted for formal design review. There are some items of that application that have been deemed incomplete, which they are working on in terms of setbacks and other code issues. All of that stuff, they had to do minor tweaks to the design to ensure that they could comply with the setbacks. So if there were significant changes to the design, it would be taken back to ASRB. But at this time, they have not made significant changes. They've made some minor tweaks to the position of the building and changing a roof line to ensure compliance with setbacks and heights.
So the next step is planning commission.
So no, at this point, it is just to complete formal design review at the staff level because they installed story poles and the ASRB did not have significant issues with the design. So all the neighbors, especially the neighbor here speaking, will be informed of any decision that's made on that application. And that application, that decision can be
It's
appealed to the planning commission.
Okay.
Any decision in the planning commission can be appealed to the town council.
May I
Okay.
speak? The ASRP did not have any issue because they were presented with inaccurate information. So the entire evaluation criteria were not evaluated accordingly. The project should not have advanced to formal design to
Yep.
begin with.
Well, there's going to be an opportunity for a timely appeal for sure. So it's
But
just the
why
way the
would,
municipal
um,
system works at this point.
Why
So-
would a resident
Okay.
have to even?
Yeah. So this is a non-agendized item. We're not going to talk about it, but I appreciate bringing it up. We're well aware of it. I want you to know your voice has been heard
Okay.
and I'm watching it too for you. So just know
Right.
that we'll be in contact.
Right,
Okay.
I think we need to
Okay.
follow the procedure.
We do, yes. Any other public comments from anyone? Alia Lubin, hello.
Hi. I just want to say for myself and for the History Committee, I really appreciate the council even considering the purchase of the Velikat House. And as you all know, and whatever part Jen played in having the school board purchase it, I just great big thank you. And I hope that the town will help facilitate whatever plan is going forward. I understand there's a desire for teacher housing on that site. And, you know, it's sort of I hate the word win-win, but we saved the old Velikat house and we now have something that can be used as a model for additional housing in the center of town. And I also want to, you've probably heard about it, I want to reinforce our invitation to the museum on May 12th. We have our annual preservation award. And everybody in the room is invited. And after which we will be coming to the council for the proclamation for Preservation Month. And our two recipients this year is the Old Stone Winery on La Cuesta Way. And used to be called the Telephone Exchange, and then it was the Almanac Building, and now it's Del Gavio. It's on the corner, right, kitty corner from Roberts. So I do hope you'll all join us. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for your advocacy. That did lead to a closed session discussion. And I haven't met a single person who isn't thrilled with the outcome of what's happened with that property. Other questions or comments for non-agendized items from the room? See none, and I see none in the Zoom room. So we will close public comment and we'll move right into presentations. And we have a wonderful presentation to kick things off with our new sheriff. I'll end things off. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, members of the community. Just want to say it's truly an honor to stand here before you all tonight as a newly appointed captain overseeing the police services for the town of Woodside. I'm grateful for this opportunity to serve this community and to work alongside all of you in continuing to keep Woodside a safe, vibrant, and exceptional place to live. Just a little bit about myself is I was born just down the road here in Redwood City. So serving, here is especially meaningful to me. This region has always been home, and I take great pride in contributing to the well-being of the communities that shape it. I bring 22 years of service with me here at the Sheriff's Office, and over the course of my career, I've had the privilege of working in a wide range of assignments across the organization. Most recently, I served as our Transit Bureau Commander, overseeing police services for Caltrain and Samtrans, where I oversaw complex operations involving public safety, infrastructure, and regional coordination. Each of these experiences has given me a broad perspective of policing and reinforced my core belief that strong partnerships are the foundation of effective public safety. And with Woodside being a unique and special community, known for its exceptional quality of life, its natural beauty, and its engaged residents, I am deeply committed to maintaining and enhancing that standard. I also recognize that every community has its own set of priorities and concerns. And my role is not only to provide service, but to listen carefully and consistently to the issues that matter most to the people who live here. So whether that's traffic safety, emergency preparedness, or property crime prevention, quality of life issues, I want you to know that I'm committed to working collaboratively with the town leadership, the residents, and the deputies underneath my command on those challenges in a thoughtful, proactive, and collaborative way. One of my top priorities is to ensure that our Sheriff's Office personnel are visible, accessible, and approachable. Community trust is built through relationships, and relationships are built through presence and engagement. And you will see me in the community as well. So please, I encourage the residents, any of you, to connect with me, connect with the deputies, share your concerns, be active, and we can partner together in shaping our public safety efforts for this great town. And I really want to emphasize my commitment to transparency, accountability, and responsiveness. These principles guide how I lead everywhere I've gone through the Sheriff's Office, and that will continue here in Woodside. And they're essential to maintaining the trust that this community rightfully expects and deserves. So in closing, I just want you to know that I'm very excited to be here. I know there's work ahead, but the opportunity to serve this great town, I look forward to building strong relationships with each one of you, with the residents in the community, and really understanding what your priorities are and how I can be of assistance and support. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing each of you in the future. So thanks again.
Thank
Much
you.
appreciated.
And welcome. Are there any questions from council? Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome Brandon. You've already made a big impact on our community, as we were talking about before. It's quite a history you're following here. I was trying to think of all the names, but you're following in the footsteps, at least in Woodside. Christina Corpus had the same position as captain of this particular bureau. Frank Del Porto, Mark Myers. I mean, it's a pretty impressive list. And I think that although it's big shoes to fill, the capabilities we've seen already, we're very impressed and wanted to personally welcome you to Woodside. We're really glad you're here, and you have just such a great crew. We're happy to have them all here.
Absolutely. And I think I touched on it before talking to you. I have great respect for this town. I mean, it's a really a full circle moment for me in my career. As a young deputy 22 years ago, when I first cleared the training program, my first assignment on my own was right here in the town of Woodside. And yeah, that's 22 years ago. I know a lot's changed, but I have great respect, great memories of the people who work here, the town leadership, and I'm excited to be back on at this point in this juncture of my career.
Wonderful. Thank you.
That's Brandon.
That's
I
Jen.
just wanted to also
Yes.
welcome you personally. Oh, sorry. And just offer up, you're from Redwood City, you know the area quite well, but Woodside is a small town with kind of unique needs and interests. And just to the extent any of us on the council can be helpful to you to kind of like share with you any history or communicate just what we're hearing from residents around traffic concerns, or at one point there was a spike in burglaries, whatever the case may be, we're very interested in just sharing whatever information might be useful.
Absolutely. I welcome that type of partnership. So thank you.
Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? Okay.
Brandon, and my last name is Hensel. Thank you.
Well, yeah. And we'll wrap up. Well, thank you and welcome. we really appreciate hearing your vision tonight, and we look forward to working with you to keep Woodside safe and well connected. So I'm sure, as you heard, there are a lot of people that would love to spend some time with you. So
Absolutely.
We'll look forward to that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it.
Take care. Okay, and our other presentation is from Peninsula Clean Energy, soon to be otherwise named.
Thank you, Mayor Domkowski and members of the council and staff. Thank you very much for your time here. My name is Rafael Reyes. I'm Senior Director of Energy Programs for Peninsula Clean Energy. What I'm going to do is offer a brief update on where we are with the organization. And as the mayor just mentioned, we are going to be announcing a name change. And this is on your consent agenda. I also want to acknowledge Councilmember Alberish for his service on our board and really appreciate his time and contributions there. So thank you very much for that. Why don't we move on to the next slide, please? For those of you who may not be familiar with Peninsula Clean Energy, we're your not-for-profit energy provider for San Mateo County. We provide what's known as the generation services. PG&E owns the poles and wires and manages the delivery of the electrons, as it were, to the homes and businesses in the service territory, including in Woodside. And our power is both cleaner and at lower rates than PG&E. So there are savings that customers accrue as a result of being Peninsula Clean Energy customers. Next slide, please. So Peninsula Clean Energy was formed 10 years ago. We are a joint powers authority created by all the cities, including the town of Woodside, through a unanimous vote in 2016. As I mentioned earlier, we provide both lower cost and cleaner energy through those generation services. And in addition, we also do community investments associated with clean energy, including the solar power here on this facility, which is projected to save some $140,000 over the life of the system. Next slide, please. For the residents and businesses here in Woodside, over that 10 years, the PCE customers have saved $2.5 million in that 10 years. And PCE has made over $560,000 of investments in the community through a variety of credits and rebates that customers have access to. Next slide, please. Now, our role over that 10 years has expanded from not only providing clean energy at lower cost, but also increasing the support to the community through a variety of programs that have been developed over that time. Next slide. Looking ahead, we are continuing to provide a discount on the generation services. We have recently also issued what are known as the member agency grants, including here in Woodside. In the case of Woodside, that's $113,000 for the E-Garden program, which is the landscape electrification rebate. Currently, the generation discount is at 10% relative to PG&E. And we look forward to later this year rolling out a solar and storage program that customers here in Woodside may be interested in. Next slide, please. As the mayor noted, PCE will be changing its name this year. In fact, in June, we will have the formal broadcast announcement of the new name, which is Westlight Energy. The agency is still the same, not-for-profit clean energy provider. Nothing else changes, but we have found that there is often confusion between PCE and PG&E. This comes up quite regularly, and that confusion, among other things, has led to a decision to rename the agency. Again, nothing else about the agency will be changing. Next slide, please. And so our ask here is, per what the item on your consent agenda, is approval of the JPA amendment with the new name. which again is really intended to help us better communicate to and connect with customers, including residents and businesses here in Woodside. We will also have a whole series of events over the course of the year marking our 10-year anniversary, including a policy reception in the fall, a variety of community events, and there will be further communication on those, and we hope to have your participation. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Very good. Thank you, Raphael. Any questions from council?
No questions. I just want to say thank you for the great presentation, for all the work you do.
Thank you very much.
Any members of the public that would like to speak on this issue?
In September.
You've come to the right community with that message.
Yes.
Okay, well, we appreciate you being here to make the presentation and your evolution to Westlight Energy, and we will move on to consent in just a moment for approval.
Thank you very much.
Presumably. Thank you. All right, I think with that, we will move on to the consent. So all items on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be approved by one roll call motion unless any member of the council or any member of the public would like to have one of those items pulled. There's 9 items tonight. Are there any items on the consent that any council member would like to pull? Yes, sir.
Item number 8.
Item 8. Are there any items that any member of the public would like us to pull for further discussion? Hearing none, can we get a motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9, please?
So moved.
Thank you.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold, Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Yes. Thank you. And we'll turn it over to you, Councilmember Brown, on resolution for the town manager to execute an expansion of the contract with Good City.
Yeah, I simply wanted to understand a little bit better what the $20,000 was going into.
Sure, I can answer that. And then if I miss something, I'll turn it over to our consultants who are here as well. We, in reviewing the concept drawings that you will see later tonight, before the CAC started with verbal meetings, and our design team put together concept drawings that were to be brought forward. And per the timeline, it was going to come back to town council first and then return to the CAC. And in talking with the consultants and staff, we decided that we added in an additional CAC meeting, Citizen Advisory Committee meeting that took place last Tuesday so that we could get the feedback from that committee on the concept drawings before we brought it forward to the town council. And so it took extra work to put that meeting together in the presentation, attend that meeting, and also the consultants reached out to the stakeholders for the private property business owners in the town center area to present those ideas and hear concerns from them.
Okay, all right, understand, thank you.
Would you like the motion for 8, Councilmember Brown?
I move that we approve item 8.
Second.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold, Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, thank you. All right, moving right along. Public hearing, item A. So tonight we're going to have a public hearing on updating our fee schedule, which is a continuation from April 14th agenda. And this is boomeranging Melissa to Patty, right? Okay, welcome, Patty.
Okay. Hi, my name is Patty Higashioka. I'm a senior management analyst here at the town. It's recommended that the town approve the resolution updating the user and regulatory fees effective July 1st. I'd like to introduce Terry Madsen. He's the president and principal consultant at ClearSource Financial Consulting. Since 2003, Terry has assisted the town in preparing our fee schedule. So he'll give the presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Terry. I think this is the first time we haven't seen you on Zoom.
Yes.
Good to have you.
Good evening, Mayor.
You want to take that up a little bit for you?
Sure.
You don't have to bend
Thank you.
over.
Thank you very much.
Go.
Very good. Well, good evening, Mayor and members of the Town Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you this evening on this topic. I know you mentioned you have a full agenda, so I will make my way quickly through about a dozen slides, and I'm available to receive any feedback or questions from the council. Just by way of background, we'll in terms of a meeting agenda, we'll talk through the background regarding user and regulatory fees, and then we'll discuss staff's recommendation for this item effective July 1, 2026. So by way of background, next slide, please. We're dealing with what we would call user and regulatory fees, and these are different than taxes. So communities primarily use tax revenues to fund services that provide broad community-wide benefit. We most commonly think of these as public safety services, public works services, park maintenance type services that we all access as needed. And when we see a direct receiver of service, we use regulatory fees or user fees to recover the cost of providing a service specifically to a member or business within the community. Most commonly, we think of this as plan review, permit fees, inspection-related fees. Next slide, please. What's important to note is that we are not examining as any part of this update. The council is not being asked to consider any sort of adjustments or modifications to taxes, any assessments, any utility rates. So the things that we think about and experience most commonly, they are not a subject of this topic. We're thinking of service-based, most common building permit type fees, planning entitlement fees, and so forth. Next slide. The reason towns like Woodside and cities throughout California examine their fees periodically and charge fees is the number one reason we examine fees and go through this mechanism of council consideration is to comply with legal requirements. The California Constitution and the California Government Code outline the process for fee setting and fee establishment. And the number one criteria is we're not in the profit-making business. We're in the cost recovery business. And so a fee we don't want to exceed our cost of providing service. When we do recover fees from the receiver of service, we are by definition freeing up the town's general fund to be used for any other council priority in terms of that you might see fit when building a budget. And then I think this final bullet point is important. When we recover our cost of providing service, we are positioning Woodside to continue to meet the service level expectation of the community. Next slide, please. I mentioned this idea that these items are approved by the town council. That's why they come before you, is because fees are adopted by the town council. They are intended to be dynamic. You, as a matter of process, review fees annually. You perform a study periodically, and then you do some inflationary adjustments in between comprehensive studies. But ultimately, any fee is adopted by the town council. Next slide. In terms of history, the most recent comprehensive fee study was completed in 2023. In 2020, and as part of that adopting resolution, the town council said, we'd like to do this periodically. In the in-between years, we'd like to have fees follow regional cost inflation with a not to exceed amount. And so that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years. In 2024, there was a planning fee study, but this year is just an inflationary adjustment with minor non-inflationary type adjustments when we're trying to enhance fee schedule clarity or make it more clear in terms of service provided and fee collected. So staff still intends to perform a comprehensive type study every 3 to 5 years, but in these interim years, they're more inflationary type adjustments. Next slide. In terms of what the council is being asked to consider that would be effective 26-27, the most recent regional cost inflation, the metric that has been used for the last several years is the regional CPI. That amount changed by 2.18%. So most of your fees are proposed to be adjusted by 2.18%. I mentioned there's some other minor non-inflationary adjustments. Next slide. For this evening, staff recommends the council would complete the public hearing and consider adopting the updated schedule of fees that would be effective July 1, 2026. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you, Terry. Any questions from council?
Yes, I have one question. It's regarding road impact fees. Woodside has very delicate roadways. I mean, you may not realize that most of them were stagecoach roads some time ago. And I'm wondering, do we get enough road impact fee representing how delicate we are, how different we are from most of the communities? Because seeing how much heavy equipment goes through this town every day.
I wish I could give you a good answer to that. When I mentioned what we're not examining, I mentioned this idea of taxes, assessments, utility rates. There was this fourth item that's in the slide, but I didn't mention it. Impact fees are adopted by separate legislation, and we are not examining those. So I wouldn't be qualified to let you know whether your impact fees as they exist today are sufficient for your anticipated costs or not. We're dealing with service-based fees, so a human providing service to another human. Impact fees are dealing with infrastructure. What is the cost of the pavement or the new facility to accommodate any future development? And so it's a completely different world, and they are not being proposed for adjustment via this item.
How do we find out?
You
what it costs?
would connect with an expert in infrastructure costs and impact fees, and they would work with your town engineer to think about what is likely future development, what is the impact of that development on our town infrastructure, and then you would think through, knowing that, do my impact fees, are they sufficient to accommodate that?
Okay, good. Thank you.
Great. Other questions, if any, from council? All right. Any comments from the public on this item? Okay, we will close public. Let me just double check. I didn't mind to. Thank you. We will close public comment and any deliberation from council.
Just my point, I'd like us to look into the impact fees that were being paid. Because I have the suspicion we're not getting paid enough for all of the damage being done to our streets with construction equipment.
Okay. And then I'll just say, obviously, we're in an inflationary environment. We have to be a going concern. So I'm certainly supportive of this reasonable proposal of 2.18%. If there are no other comments, I think we will, can we get a motion to approve the new fee? Sorry, let me pull it up. Approve the resolution to update our regulatory fees.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Albrecht,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold, Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Terry. Appreciate it. And I guess on to new business in the main event tonight, which is a discussion of the town center area plan. Before I hand it off to our consultants, the council has asked Good City not to repeat the page-by-page presentations that we've had in the CAC meeting. We're going to go directly to the summary page to understand what the CAC is recommending with the majority of support. And then we can use the rest of the report as a reference for any questions that anybody might have. So the process tonight is going to be, we're going to hear the summary. Council will ask questions, then we'll take it to public comment, and then we'll go back and the council will give general direction based on what they heard, and then we'll move on. And we actually made incredible time in the first part of this meeting, so I actually believe that we're going to get through this whole thing tonight. So let's see what happens. But we might call it after 2 hours because we don't. We found that some of the best decisions happen in the first 2 hours and maybe not in that third hour. So so I think with that, I'm handing it off to our consultants from Good City.
Thank you, Mayor Dombrowski, and good evening, council members.
Good evening.
Oh, I was just going to say that tonight before us is a presentation from the Good City on the Town Center Area Plan update, and I'm just going to turn it over to Troy and Ryan. And
sec here. Well, okay, great. All right. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And as I said, we're excited. I'm really excited to be back here in front of you all. I was here about a year ago to introduce and kick off this project. We've made a lot of progress since then. So now we're here to talk about what we've done and to kind of take a kind of key temperature check on some of the direction we're heading in. So we've got a full agenda. First, I'll share some updates about the project, what the progress that we've made so far, what we want to get out of this project, and what really we heard in our first round of engagement, including 2 meetings with the CAC. Then Ryan and I will present some key concepts. We'll try and cut to the chase, as the mayor discussed. We'll divide the conversation into these 4 topics: transportation, parking, land use, public space. We'll have a break after transportation. And what we're really looking for tonight is for council to offer some preliminary feedback and direction on these concepts and these strategies that we've come up with, and that we intend on sharing with the community, the larger community, as part of our upcoming round of engagement. So just to be clear, this is not a final decision-making as far as the area plan, but kind of a mid-check on where we're at and if we're heading in the right direction. So then we'll have a comment, and we'll have the council discussion for each of these topics one by one. So just as a reminder, this is an overview of our schedule for the project. As I said, we met last June with the council to kick off this effort. Since then, we've had a number of stakeholder meetings. We've had 3 CAC meetings, a number of pop-ups, a survey, and a workshop. As town manager just mentioned, we added the CAC meeting last week to really give the committee the first crack at previewing some of these concepts before we were going to bring them to council tonight. So we added that meeting as a special sort of decision to make them aware of the concepts we were going to be discussing. So then after tonight, we'll be moving to the second round of community engagement. We'll come back to the CAC and to the council again before we initiate the CEQA process. And according to this pace, we would anticipate adoption of the plan in Q1 or Q2 of 2027. So just quickly to start off, I'll lay out some of the policy context, just as a reminder that kind of guides and informs our work on this update. And I'll restate some of the outcomes that we want to get out of this effort so that we're all moving in the same direction and we're all aligned on what we want to achieve with this project. And just as a reminder, you see here this image. At our first meeting, the council extended the boundary of the plan in both directions along Woodside Road from 280 on the eastern side all the way to Little Store on the western side. So that was one of the early moves by council to influence the direction of this plan. So this slide shows the zoning, current zoning in the town center. Most of the area, which you see in red, is community commercial, a zone that does not allow multifamily or mixed use. 2 parcels that are in yellow or orange there are where we are tonight, the town hall and the adjacent town museum. Even though they're rural residential, there are still some ballot constraints that constrain them from being used for residential. Then you see Village Hill and Green, which is also constrained by a ballot measure to remain in open space. Another important limitation that I think most of us are aware of, but it's worth just restating, is the Measure J, which was adopted in 1988, limits the building heights to 17 feet above the crown of the road within 100 feet from the edge of Woodside Road. And you see that area kind of represented in red here. And it covers essentially most of the privately owned portions of the town center. So just to take a quick step back, here are the key outcomes that the CAC and the community, and I think this body here, this council, would all like to see out of this update. We've talked through this with the community at various engagement opportunities, and then also again with the CAC. They've had multiple opportunities to kind of weigh in on these different points, and their feedback's been incorporated in this list. But I'll briefly just go over these. Building consensus around a shared vision, very important to us to come out of this effort with kind of forward momentum around ideas we all agree on. prioritizing the concerns of residents and local stakeholders over those of the outside visitors, maintaining the rural, equestrian-centric, and small-town character, something that was repeated over and over through all of our engagement, improving the safe movement through and around the town center for all different modes, facilitating seasonal outdoor dining, fostering a few additional public gathering spaces, improving the aesthetic appeal of the area, providing more guidance on the character and the design that we want to see of buildings in the town center, enabling the long-term success economically of local businesses, expanding the uses that we have in the town center to better serve our needs, offering more flexibility to landowners, which includes exploring residential use, and finally enhancing the revenue generating capacity of the town center to help with the town's budget. All right, with that, I'll go through quickly what we heard in the first round of engagement. So basically what we've been up to for the better part of a year. That includes, as I said, we had an extensive round of engagement. We had 4 pop-ups all across the town center. We had a very successful survey. Over 500 people responded to the survey. The vast majority of those were residents of Woodside. We had an open house at the elementary school, which drew in a lot of families with school-age children. Overall, we had over 700 touches of different folks in the community. On top of that sort of broader outreach, we also had 3 really productive meetings with our community advisory committee, the last one being just a week ago. And as I said before, their participation has been really integral in shaping the concepts and the policies we're going to be discussing tonight. And we'll be repeating most of these engagement activities in the next round of engagement, which will begin shortly after this meeting. So just as an example of some of the feedback from our online survey, we asked for folks to rank which improvements were the most important. And so some of the top vote getters were improvements to parking, pedestrian safety, the diversity of businesses, public spaces, public amenities, and traffic safety. So those were some of the things that people really were looking for to be improved and enhanced in the town center. Some other things people mentioned were outdoor dining, family-friendly spaces, a focus on resident-serving businesses were some of the other things that came up in the survey. So we asked about housing in the survey, and we found that it's pretty evenly split, about 40-40 in both cases. And overall, some of the opinions are a bit polarized about this topic. But there are those who support housing are in favor of more modest and small scale housing for the local workforce and aging residents. It's a way to serve the community's needs and to help the town sort of economically. And those who are more opposed, raised concerns around character, around housing negatively impacting the small town character, traffic, and infrastructure. And then there are a lot of those who are in this kind of not sure, curious, cautiously optimistic bucket who sort of conditionally supported housing depending on if it's sort of designed right, the scale is right, it's appropriate to the context. So kind of as a summary of all of the engagement, which again was across a number of different activities and locations, we did find a general agreement on the priorities for the town center. The first is really preserve what makes Woodside unique, which is the kind of unique combination of rural, equestrian, and small town. All of those 3 things being important kind of pieces of the town center. It's a place that brings people together while we're still maintaining that character. The second kind of pillar is invigorating community life, and that, as I mentioned before, starts with outdoor dining, more gathering spaces, more local events and programming. A place that's vibrant while still being rural, a place to meet your neighbors and enjoy community gatherings, more public spaces and more outdoor life. The third pillar and the fourth pillar both revolve really around transportation. Transportation, one of the biggest topics that came up in our discussions with the CAC and with the general community. The idea of safety and comfort, really addressing speed and crossings and visibility, an emphasis on sort of lower, smaller scale interventions rather than big moves, but interventions that enhance the sort of the safety and the beauty of the town center. And enhancing that access for all the users, not just one type of user. But again, while keeping natural surfaces, natural types of interventions that reflect Woodside. And the last pillar is about the economy, support for local businesses, and while still some interest in finding sort of missing retail niches that we could fill in the future. So as I mentioned, we had a few meetings with the CAC. Some of the key takeaways, again, really echo some of the previous points, but the idea that the preservation of the existing character is really important. Circulation was really, I would say, undoubtedly the top interest and top priority for the CAC. We spent a whole sort of additional meeting just on that topic. As I mentioned, support for outdoor dining and creating some new gathering spaces. When it comes to parking, we'll circle around on this later, but interest in parking management and parking enforcement in particular, with the goal of making sure that parking spaces are reserved for residents rather than visitors. And there was, I would say, overall sort of cautious support for two-story mixed-use housing and mixed-use development. And there were also lots of ideas for housing opportunity sites outside of the plan area that were brought up in the discussion. All right. So with that, now we'll jump into kind of a topic by topic overview, and I'll hand it over to Ryan.
Thanks, Troy. Thank you, Town Council and Mayor. Appreciate your time tonight. This is an explorative process. You know, we reach out to the community, the CAC, yourselves. We hear a lot of statements and opinions that always don't coalesce. You don't start a consensus, you build consensus. And so our job is to take all these things, create visual exhibits, and have the kind folks like yourself beat them up. So that's what we're here to do tonight. We had a really, really great, vibrant discussion with the CAC. We learned a great deal from that. And we've distilled some new ideas into the set, responding to what we heard from them. And then our next step is to hear from you, and then take your feedback, refine, and then go out to the community for our next steps. So again, thank you again tonight. Next slide. So we'll be talking about transportation, mobility, and streetscapes. So this addresses the need for pedestrian safety, which is one of the priorities, gathering spaces, placemaking, and then also making sure that the changes we make to any of the vehicle movements or other modes of transit, such as horses and bikes, are also for the better. Next slide. So these were some of the big areas that we were asked to focus on. Of course, kind of the heart of your town is the intersection of Woodside and Kenyatta and Mountain Home. It's a wide expanse of asphalt, and the pedestrian movements are not super clear. That was one area to address. And then also looking for the full length of Woodside is making it easier and safer to cross. And then looking at traffic speeds around the school. And we've also learned to look at the traffic speeds behind the shops and restaurants along Woodside Avenue through the parking lot. Pathways to the north side of Woodside Road, the parking condition at just the corner where you turn on the Mountain Home, and then looking at some of the left turn lane movements out of Whiskey Hill. One of the challenges is as a pedestrian to safely travel from maybe your office to the grocery store. How can we make that more attractive, enticing, and keep people from getting in their car and instead taking a walk to do some of their needs from their place of work to the shopping. Next slide. So we organized our study areas from west to east. So starting off with Woodside Road from really a little beyond Little Store into Roberts Grocery, and then looking at the intersection of Kenyatta and Woodside Road, and then on to the central stretch of Woodside Road, and then the intersection at Whiskey Hill, and then up to Woodside Road. Slide. And so I was told that you spent hours and hours poring over the slides, absorbing the concepts, so that I could be very brief tonight. So I will respect that and be very brief tonight. And we can come back and have as much depth in the discussion as you would like. So next slide. So the area A, which stretches from Little Store or up to Robert's Grocery, there's kind of three concepts here. These are mostly to orient you to where these concepts happen. First is really, let's enhance the safety as much as possible around Woodside Elementary School. Next slide. The second stretch was, or concept two, this is looking at how do we make the north side of Woodside Road more consistent, more pedestrian friendly, and creating a pedestrian pathway really on both sides. And then also formalizing separated bike lanes on both sides of the travel lanes. There's a couple of spots where trees get in the way, but for the most part, it's possible. Next slide. So this shows the condition around Little Store, and the other issue that is apparent is it's a little unclear where you can park and where you can't park. And just getting clarity by looking at surveys and documenting what's public right of way and what's not, and getting signage up so people know if they're parking in the right or they're parking in the wrong. So that clarity is really important. And then just looking at ways of narrowing the travel lanes so we can accommodate safe bike movement. And most importantly, I think the lowest hanging fruit is upgrading the pedestrian path on the south side of the street, going west beyond the school. Next slide. So the CAC feedback was yes on the concept one, as many traffic calming devices as we can do. The one thing that was not well received are speed bumps. But looking at speed tables that are carefully designed to take into consideration truck trailers, horse trailers, things like that is important. The north side multi-youth path was, there was support for the concept, but there's also acknowledgement that the drainage and the irregular conditions there might make that very expensive and difficult to achieve. And so looking at that block by block, but that was kind of more lukewarm. And then concept three is getting absolute clarity on where you can park and where you can't, was well received. So I thought we'd stop there and hear your thoughts before we go into the next session.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions from council on area A?
Yeah, I'd like to understand what other experience other communities that you worked with have had with any changes pre-post implementation of programs in pedestrian and bicycle usage downtown or in the area that you're working in. We have a lot of presumptions here that we're going to build all these bike paths and walking paths. And I'd like to understand how many people will really use those.
Yeah, I think it's a fair question. Alta is going to do a pedestrian survey. Is that tomorrow or this week? This morning. So our transportation consultant is actually spending time looking at how people actually use your streets and path. Some of the things that we learned from our community outreach was a consistent concern among citizens about the difficulty of walking from one zone to another. So looking at general, what's basically good practices for urban design, pedestrian, multimodal, bike, and in this case, equestrian uses, it's really trying to find that balance between traffic speeds, lane widths for cars, with widths for sidewalks and bike facilities that are safer for all three to make them more inviting to all ages. And so we work in various cities all throughout the Bay Area, and these are generally directives that many cities are pursuing to encourage more people, safer travel in those other than car modes of transportation.
You've encouraged it, but have you actually seen results? Has it actually happened?
Yeah, no, Berkeley, and I know this isn't Berkeley clearly, it's a big city, but they went from streets that were actually quite bike unfriendly and dangerous in an area where there are a lot of bikes and pedestrians. And they've done aggressive transformation of their streets to accommodate protected bike lanes. And they're getting a lot more people on bikes. And it's mostly serving the immediate, there's a lot of single family home neighborhoods just directly adjacent to the downtown core. And those people are finding, number one, it's expensive to park in Berkeley. And so they can take their bike and on those safe tracks with their kids into town easier than they could prior, and they feel safer doing it. There's also a high density of student population there that uses their bike quite a bit. So NACTO is one of our guidelines for bike safety design that we're using, but it also addresses good, where pedestrians, bikes, and cars intersect requires a lot of attention so that you don't have collisions in those.
I'm familiar with the Berkeley situation, so yeah, I understand what you're saying. Thank you. The other thing I wanted to ask you to flesh out more the next couple rounds, and that's going to be on parking.
Mhm.
You have under area 2 parking, and you've got 4 ideas there. But I would love to see at least a couple of those explored extensively, because we've talked on and on as a community about doing something about all the parking because it's a mess, but nothing's happened. And I really want to see something come out of these meetings that says meaningful action. And I think your ideas here are good ones. I think one person in this room I know would probably agree with me on some of those ideas. Okay, well, she has a big voice in this, so I just urge you to try to come to some concrete recommendations for us to deal with.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Wall.
I wanted to ask about concept 1, the traffic calming. Can you say a little bit about what the implementation path would be for that? Because I mean, it is a highway and controlled by Caltrans. So if we wanted to make these changes, what would the process for that look like?
I think that's a good question. So we already met along with the town. We met with Caltrans early on as we were developing these concepts to touch base with them. Obviously, like you say, Woodside Road's controlled by Caltrans. So most anything that we ultimately will do would require some buy-off on their end. So that would be the first step after assuming we go through this process. First, we're going to go through this process, and if we all agree on this direction, then that will become sort of the policy direction of this plan is a series of traffic calming interventions, additional research and exploration. Probably what would happen would be there would be a more focused corridor plan, like a block by block plan for this area. We're kind of looking at it at a high level, at a conceptual level, at a policy level. But so this plan is not like a detailed construction level analysis of this corridor. But what would happen is we would commission that type of study, and then Caltrans would be brought in. Caltrans would likely do their own analysis. They have their own process for reviewing these types of interventions. And then these would be deployed, again, depending on if the town was to acquire or go after some Safe Routes to Schools grants. Those could be phased in over time. The implementation, I think, would depend largely on Caltrans' acceptance of these treatments. They've become much more accepting of these kinds of programs, and Safe Routes to Schools is very popular across the state. And then the other piece of the implementation would be the funding. I don't know if there are any, I don't think any of these are specifically in this town's capital improvements plan at the moment, but that gets updated on a regular basis. So I don't know if that could be, these improvements could be funded through grants or future CIPs, depending on what the town public works decides to prioritize or go after from a grant standpoint.
I also had a question about concept 2. So it sounds like that was met with some lukewarm support, but some concerns about the cost. And I think on one of the other slides, it indicated that more more diligence was needed. And I know this is also something that the Circulation Committee has looked into, and I believe they were also doing some more diligence on the costs. Is that diligence now being done? And is that being facilitated in any way by your firm?
That's not really in our scope to do that level of detail. I think what we can do is maybe try and take a stab at a high level like cost, but we're not going to be able to get in and do a level of detail analysis that you would need to really know like tree by tree. But one of the recommendations that could come out of this effort is to do exactly that. To do another more detailed look at it. I think here, this process is more going to establish the policy direction of whether or not we want to try to do a certain facility intervention, in this case being a trail or a bike lane. So here we would establish the direction, and then there would be an additional effort to look at, to probably do some surveying, because it would require, I think, some pretty detailed fine-tooth comb looking at where the property lines are and where utilities are. I think the utilities and the drainage are where there would be some challenges here, but we could come up with conceptual direction and conceptual design in this process, but then there would be a follow-up needed.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
So for the path on the north side of Woodside Road that we were just talking about. So I remember when it came before us, I believe the estimated cost was something like $2 million. And it sounded like there's other options that you could look at, like to reduce that cost. Can you explain a little bit like what that would look like, how we could get around lower costs and how much lower? I mean, I understand you can't give any specifics, but just kind of ballpark.
So for our particular exercise, we're really assessing what is the strength and advocacy for this vision amongst the community and yourselves and CAC. But we can see that there are some potential pitfalls. The storm drain situation is challenging, requires civil engineer to assess, and then there'd be a variety of different solutions which are outside of my expertise that would, give you longer term benefits, but perhaps a higher investment cost in the near term. There would be options where you might get a wider, nicer sidewalk, but it might come with a higher subterranean infrastructure cost. So there's a lot of discussion about what are the trade-offs for these things in long-term and short-term that would be part of that process. The other parts that would require a lot of, I think, sensitivity would be how when cars approach the corner of intersecting roads, what are the visibility constraints? How do we need to open things up? It might require some removal of visual obstacles, which could have leaves on them, things like that. So this is really about if the community, yourselves and the CAC strongly believe that this is a priority, then that helps support an initiative to do that deep dive. The takeaway from our CAC meeting is that the South Side Trail is pretty easy to implement, beyond the school, even past Little Store. That should be a high priority. The more expensive options such as this might be a secondary priority to getting that first one tackled.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question? So is an extension of the South Side path part of Concept 1?
It can be. This is basically, these are a collection of ideas, and there's multiple ideas in each concept, and you can pick and pull the ones that you think are of the highest priority. I think generally we feel that the improvement of that South Side trail is important to make it a little more formalized. It's quite good leading all the way from downtown, from the village center to the school. But going beyond that, it gets a little amorphous and less defined.
Does Concept 3 block Concept 2 in any way? Meaning, does the parking get in the way of a north side trail? Is that the choice that we have to make?
It definitely could,
Yeah.
but this is where we really need to, and it's not obvious when you stand out there, where private property stops and where public property starts. So the challenge is people have claimed it. They've put pieces of wood or different things out there to say this is not public property. And this is where I think there aren't the usual kind of obvious indicators such as fences and things like that. So there needs to be a survey. And then the other part it has to coincide with is Caltrans accepting 11-foot lanes that allows the 5-foot bike facility, and then kind of working from the center line of the road out to see what kind of dimension we have left until we hit that private property line. So it's a bit interconnected. And I think if you do a survey to determine what's public right of way and what's private right of way through there, it'll be much clearer what you can achieve.
And in general, right away is what, 18 feet off the center, basically, or what is it?
It's 46 from edge to edge, but that's from property edge to property edge.
23 feet off the center each way for a highway, for a state highway.
Yeah. And the thing that's interesting about this design is we got feedback early on saying the bike lanes had to have just a stripe separating them so that in the case of fire or other things, fire trucks have full access of the 16 feet of asphalt there.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just a quick observation and a question. I wanted to talk about those dimensions. First of all, you guys have been doing a great job. I think about a third of the people here have been in those meetings, and it's pretty impressive to see it. And also, I think that although your presentation is sort of in summary format, it really doesn't, the back and forth that was going on there, where the group started and where it ended up, it was pretty chaotic at times, I think, but we ended up at least here in front of the council with this. As you alluded to, there's all these competing issues like the bike lanes I know that there was advocacy to make them bigger and that sort of thing. And then of course we need the fire trucks have to have certain room, and big trucks come through, and the equestrian community said, gee, I'd come through here with a big trailer with my horses and I need more room. So we've got all these moving parts here that we have to wrestle through. Is there a way, and I know this came up, Steve Lubin's here, I think he may have been the person who brought this up, about not combining the bike and the multi-use, but somehow, shoehorning them in there. And I guess you've just got this limited dimension that you really, you got to allocate something to cars and trucks on a state highway. How do you wrestle with that? I mean, could we end up with a single multi, for bike and pedestrians so that we can make it work? Or is that just, we run into the wall on that and you just can't do that?
It's a great discussion, and I think there are a number of different trade-offs that come with it. Part of it is you might end up with two-way bike traffic on one side for the people that follow the rules. And then you might have the kind of high-speed cyclists that prefer not engaging other cyclists at close quarters driving out in the road. So you might end up in a situation where your bikes end up in almost too many places. But I think it was an idea that we hadn't considered. It's an interesting idea to look at. One of the challenges coming up beyond the school, after you've passed the school, there's a large tree that forces the bike traffic really in the lane. And so if you had both directions of bike traffic, we'd need to figure out how to get them to cross Woodside Road at some point to transition. And that comes with some certain difficulties. But the one positive thing I'll say about that scheme, though, is you have a very long stretch after the school and a very wide shoulder that you could explore having a really generous two-way bike lane that I think for maybe the non-competitive cyclist might be very attractive to families and folks heading to the school.
Okay, thank you.
Right. I think with that, we will open up public comment on Area A. Does anybody have a public comment that they would like to make on this issue? A lot of people are here for parking. Okay. Hello, Steve Lubin.
Surprise, surprise. I think really there's a issue of space. I think that it would be great to have the sidewalk on the north side, but it's, if there's enough room to put bike lanes on both sides, then I think it makes sense to put the sidewalks on both sides, but I'm not sure there is everywhere. And I have from at least the part from the school to Roberts, I think it's limited enough so that if you have, good bike lanes and there just isn't enough room, and it takes actually less room to have a shared path like Troy was talking about. That's a shared two-way path. The states and federal standards is 12 feet wide. What we have there is 5 feet now. And so we end up with really a dangerous situation for kids, especially in the afternoon, heading from the school to the store. The kids will ride their bikes and come up to pedestrians and then veer out into the traffic. And that isn't as dangerous eastbound because the cars are going slow. If that were replicated in the other direction, I think it would be really dangerous because the bicycles are going uphill and are going slower. So I think it's really a matter of space, and I think you can get I think it needs careful study, but I think there's a good chance that having a shared, a 12-foot wide shared facility on the south side with frequent crosswalks and crosswalk tables, and just enough on the north side to get people to the crosswalks might end up with a better facility. And I think that should be explored. The other issue is the illustration that Good Cities presented showed a bike lane immediately adjacent to parked cars, which is a really bad idea. If you have parked cars, you need a door zone. It takes another 3 feet. So once you start introducing parking, it takes even more space.
Thank you. Any other comments on area A? See none in the Zoom, so we'll close public. And any thoughts from council on general direction here? Tough one. Thank you,
Sorry.
Councilmember Wall. Appreciate it.
Okay, so I know we're limiting our comments right now just to the area A. And I mean, I actually really like all three concepts. So, but I'll explain kind of my thinking. So concept one, looks like it was also supported unanimously by the advisory committee. I think as a council, we should give the policy direction that we support this, and that we should take the next steps to figure out how to interact with Caltrans, and pursue this concept. On concept two, I'm sort of cautiously supportive. I mean, I think we need to do more diligence. I think we need to figure out two things, like, is it indeed super expensive, or have we identified a potentially less expensive way of implementing this multi-use path than what we originally thought when this was brought before council? And then I think, to the mayor's point, is concept two compatible with concept three? So I think on this one, my direction would be, let's explore it more. Let's, work with the town engineer, I believe would be involved, potentially the circulation committee. Let's get some more information on what it would cost. And like I said, whether it's compatible with concept three. On concept three, I think the policy direction should be that we support this enough to explore it more. And again, I think we need to look at the space constraints, figure out to what extent we need Caltrans involvement. But again, I would support this from a policy standpoint.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? Thank you, Councilmember Everidge.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with the CAC majority here. So concept one makes a lot of sense. It seems not super expensive. Same with concept three. That seems like low hanging fruit and makes sense. Concept two, it sounds like it's kind of still, I don't really see a path past, like a clear path to avoid the $2 million cost cost estimate that we heard previously. So I wouldn't be inclined to pursue that further, especially considering it's got less support. But yeah, so that's where I stand.
Yeah.
We had a source to fund the north side. How would you feel? That was not a town source.
That would change things. Yeah. Supportive. Yeah. If
I have a possible source, okay? Serious source. So, I mean, I'll have a much better answer for you in a couple of weeks. But it's something that's been in discussion now for quite some time. And I know that a couple other members of the council know I'm talking about a library project that would help to tie together the community with a walkway from basically Bucks to the library across the school. So you would have a connection for children and residents, pedestrian and bicycle. I mean, how would be the bike and pedestrian stuff, but a walkway that could be funded largely or completely by the source other than the town.
That's excellent. Yeah.
I just wanted to echo what Hassan said, and that is that we need to think about this in terms of the realm of reality. And I think for when you think about bang for the buck and what we could do, all in on concept one. I mean, it's something feasible, makes economic sense, can be done relatively easy. We have to get obviously buy-in from Caltrans is the big hurdle there, but that can be done. The rest, I'm not putting the library funds aside, but they're a little bit more speculative and longer term and a bit more difficult to deliver on. So I just look at it in terms of the reality and practicality. And so I would echo what was said previously.
Right. I'll just mention on concept two, circulation at one point asked for it. Citizens have asked for it. It is a dangerous place to walk. You wind up out in the bike lane right now. So, and if we want to facilitate bikes and pedestrians, as we just heard from the public comment, that street parking sort of makes that a little challenging if somebody opens the door while you're biking by. So I do think 2 and 3 are, fortunately, they're mutually exclusive, is my guess. But maybe there's an answer where at least we can connect parts of the pathway or something. That's not ideal, but Kings Mountain to Little Store and so forth are easier, I think. But I think what we've heard is what we've heard maybe on council over time is that there is a lot of interest in that path. It's expensive. Maybe there's an option here. So I'm not sure this is going to help because you're going to hear 5 different opinions, it sounds like. But and we're going to hear a 6th. I'm going to just break tradition because we have the chair of the circulation committee just raised his hand. So I'm just going to, Isan, can I bring you in? You with me, Isan?
I am.
Hey.
Hi, Mayor. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I was clicking the button as you closed it, so I appreciate you giving me a chance. Yeah, no, I agree with the general comments. I think one thing we've been doing on circulation since when that project came forth to you guys as a CIP, that wasn't actually our intent. We were trying to investigate it, and it kind of jumped from an idea to a project, and then you guys, I would say rightfully turned it back because it wasn't a plan yet. I would say that what we've been doing on circulation is we've been trying to separate the need from the price. Not because we don't care, but because we want to say, is there a justification for this? And then if there is, and there's something that's, constructible, then funds have to be identified and found, right? Whether it's a library, a donor, we save up pennies over the years, right? This document is supposed to be for the next few decades. And so the cost, we try to separate them because if you put the cost up front, you're totally right. It's like, oh, that's impossible. We can't do it, right? We want to find solutions, not just reasons we can't do it. And I think that north side sidewalk, it definitely has tons of support from people. I agree with you. There's been lots of people who asked for it. Also, I was part of that walk audit this morning, and it turns out there's a lot of other benefits that I won't get into here. I think Alta will come back with the details. There's a lot of other benefits that will actually result if you put in a sidewalk or something over there to restrict traffic flow to some of those earlier problems in terms of speeding and people pulling around. So anyways, all that's to say, I think that north side sidewalk is definitely something that Woodside could benefit from. It absolutely has challenges, but any of you who drive down there, you see people walking in the bike lane. Well, guess what? That's actually technically against the rules. You could get a ticket for that. You're not supposed to be there walking. So again, we want to meet people where they are. They're using that area. We want to make it safe. And so I would say as a policy, supporting it is great with the absolute acknowledgement that it will not be cheap. It will not be easy. But if you put enough effort behind it, we might be able to pull it off. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is it fair to say that we in some way support all three concepts? Okay. I see a lot of head nods, so let's just run with that.
Great.
Jump to parking because I think we got a lot of folks here on parking.
Yep, that's good direction. We'll keep moving. I think most important is if there's anything at this point you don't want to move forward at all. I think that's the most important feedback that you can give us. But that was great. Thanks for that. All right, we'll keep moving. Ryan.
So this was our next priority area is the Woodside Road, Kenyatta Road, Mountain Home Road intersection. This is an area where it can be difficult as a motorist, pedestrian, or on horse or bike, partly because of visibility issues and also just the size of the intersection and the turning movements that are there. Next slide. So we presented three concepts. I'll go through these super briefly. This one here was exploring back-in parking where Roberts is, and then basically eliminating the slip lane that goes onto Woodside Road from Mountain Home. So right now you can make that free right going over to Woodside Road. That would go away. You expand that public right-of-way up to the Gilbert's property line and introduce a park that's about double the size of your existing Alec Donald Park. Next slide. Again, exploratory process. This was a concept where we relocated the on-street parking over to where Alec Donald Park is currently. So essentially moving the park next to Robert's Grocery and moving the parking over there. The idea was to have free flow of traffic, but of course, getting your carts and other things over there is extremely problematic. Next slide. This was the kind of the out-of-the-box scheme, which was let's take the slip lane, turn that into 2 lanes of traffic, and create a second intersection. And that helped narrow up all the crossings where Woodside connects with Kenyatta, creating a 3-way intersection rather than a 4-way intersection. And then the parking would be on this new park in front of Robert's Grocery. Next slide. So these were the 3 initial concepts. We had just a tiny bit of discussion for about an hour, and which was great. And I really appreciated everybody's feedback. And there were some brilliant new ideas that came to the table. And that's exactly what we were trying to do with this whole process. So if you go to the next slide, there was interest in just saying, you know, what is the absolute most minimum thing that we can do to improve driver safety, pedestrian safety, and enhance the crossing from the business district to the east to Robert's Grocery. And so the easiest simple move is to make some changes to the crosswalks. So you notice there where the slip lane enters Woodside Road, there's a well-defined pedestrian crossing. And then you walk along Woodside Road to another crosswalk that would extend over. And the idea that came from the CAC that was so interesting was rotating your existing crosswalk that goes over to the traffic triangle across Woodside, rotating it so that the cars are coming further forward so that they can actually see down Mountain Home rather than being tucked back behind Roberts Market as they are today. So that was a really interesting concept. The other idea that came from that is your through and right turn lane is fairly wide. And if we could buy a couple feet out of that and create 8-foot parallel parking along the north side of Robert's Grocery and really formalize it with markings that people are familiar with for parallel parking, we could introduce a more customer-friendly parking area there, and then free up, eliminate the hard corner space so that we could create that landing for pedestrians and create those connecting crosswalks across Mountain Home and rotating the one coming down from Kenyatta Road. So that was kind of the minimal improvements, safety focus, no changes to Alec Donald Park, and you keep the slip lane going over to Woodside. Next slide. So this one kept the concept of the two crosswalks crossing Woodside and Mountain Home, but it eliminated the slip lane. And so when you take back that public right-of-way and transform it into a park, you can double the size of your Alec Donald Park and design it in a way that encourages social interaction, buffers the speed and sound from Woodside Road, and creates kind of a natural gathering place for people getting sandwiches from Roberts, or they're taking a break from work at the Gilbert Center. And then what it would do is also striping a new crosswalk on the south side of the parking from Roberts, not taking parking away, but just having a strong pedestrian crossing there right now. That's not there today. So that was our concept one that basically was refining it. You'll notice that there are no changes to the parking pattern at Roberts, with the exception of removing the space that's right at the corner of Woodside and Mountain Home. So that's kind of where we landed after our last CAC, as far as taking their ideas and put it into a graphic visual that we could look at. Next slide. So this shows that in 3D, and it gives you a little bit of sense of scale for the space. Doubling the park as it is today is pretty small, and it's a traffic island. This helps, connect it directly to parking. There's 5 new spots on the south side that are accessed off of public easement that are taken out of that former slip lane, so they don't encroach on the private property. And it's, next slide. And so this is the view. And so there's a welcome moment for folks traveling through Woodside. That's formalized public realm, and it can be, potentially a place for small community events. It's convenient to all your shops and restaurants and office space. Next slide. So those were, we're looking at presenting as many ideas as possible on the table to get as many reactions as possible. And so from the minimalist intervention to the out-of-the-box intervention on concept 3, we want to get as much public feedback as possible. The CAC had a pretty strong reaction to the whole presentation in that zone, of course, but it was a really, really good discussion. So 2 and 3, they felt only a few people supported those. And concept 0 is something we hadn't drawn yet, but we added that as a request from the CAC. And then concept 1 was, again, implementing some of the ideas that were discussed in 0, but eliminating that slip lane in lieu of a larger park. So that's kind of a quick summary of the concept area 2.
Great, thank you. Any questions from council on area B?
Yeah, I guess my only question is, does the committee have a lot of demand for the enlarged park there?
So the enlarged park was a product of the community feedback that was asking for placemaking, kind of gathering place element in the city. And rather than locate that in a place that isn't adjacent to commonly used or commonly shared locations, like, the whole community uses Robert's Grocery, so there's a chance of meeting people if you're using that use. There's an existing public space there currently, but it's not very usable without crosswalks, and without, its current design is not designed for people. It's really just a landscape element. So we're kind of taking that element and seeing an opportunity for a gathering concept. Concept 0 keeps it exactly the way it is, and then concept 1 expands it, and then concept 3, introduces a pretty radical new concept.
Okay, thank you.
Quick clarification. So you say concept, the final CIC feedback was concept 1, but with some modifications. When you just gave us the update, was that inclusive of the modifications they requested?
Yeah, so if you go one slide back. So the feedback that we heard was, do not impact the parking as much, well, really at all at Robert's Grocery, which is totally understandable. So our response to that was, let's take a little dimension out of Woodside Road on the north side of the store, which actually you can see in the plan if you go back one more. So you'll see kind of a red, blue, and white cars that are right there. There's a strip of asphalt with a white line that looks kind of like a shoulder, or it's a little undefined the way it is now.
Do you want to, I mean, is it possible to show us?
So essentially, you have a very wide through lane and right turn lane there. And so those 3 cars that we've drawn there represent, if you push that narrow zone to a standard 8 feet, and you put those striping in there, that clearly makes it parallel parking that people recognize or are familiar with. It relieves the impact of removing that space that we had to eliminate to make those crosswalks feasible. So that's kind of, we don't want to have a negative impact on the business or people's convenience of using the business. And front door parking is the most golden parking you can get for any commercial use. So we put that back, and then you'll notice the light gray kind of arc. Yeah, so that there's a white line today that demarks where the cars should go and where the parked cars can maneuver. And so that line follows, that light gray follows that arc that's there today. I think it's worth playing up the visual clarity there. So it's super clear where through traffic belongs and where cars can focus on maneuvering or lifting tailgates. And there's even potential, if it doesn't damage the tree's root structure, to put a compact stall potentially on the roadside of the palm tree that's there. So that was an idea of like, let's keep things as much the way they are as possible. Let's respond to community feedback that gathering place is important at the heart of Woodside. And, this intersection from an arrival point of view, if you're coming from Kenyatta or if you're coming from the west into town, this is such a key arrival moment. And so putting a park that's properly designed, which would take some careful consideration to kind of buffer visually the moving traffic and some of the sound and creating a nice atmosphere. But I do think it's possible if that park gets expanded and is not surrounded on 3 sides by traffic. So that was the concept of trying to address that community feedback for a gathering place.
And just remind us, there was parallel parking in front of Roberts, but Caltrans, as I recall, took it away, right? Or no? Threatening to. Okay.
I think.
But how are you getting the extra couple of feet there?
So
You're moving the road, the stripe?
Just the white line. So 5-6 years ago, Caltrans was much less amenable to 11-foot lanes, but they have evolved their thinking quite a bit, especially when it comes to environments that traverse a commercial district.
Okay.
And so they're willing to go down to 10.5 or 11 feet. So I think we can work with that. Yeah. Make that nicer parking.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, we'll jump over to any public comments on this matter. We are opening public comment on area B of the plan. Hello, Stuart. Yeah. Sure. All right, we'll go Leanne and then Stuart.
Thank you.
Question.
Can you please tell me what the green triangular thing is across? I didn't quite understand what you were saying. It says Alec Donald Park or something on it. All right, and it's there now? Well, I missed that one. Okay, it's low. Okay, I didn't know. Yeah. I actually hate everything about most of this intensely. I think that we're asking for a lot of people to come here and they're going to park in these wonderful little parks. They're going to sit there and eat. And I want them to buy things from the grocery store. I love the grocery store and I love Christine and I loved George Roberts and what he did for the town. But there's people that come and all they do is throw their papers on the ground and it's filthy and so on. It's just another upkeep kind of thing. I don't make, I'm not very good at looking at stuff like this. I have to be on the site in order to feel it and look around. But I was very offended the last time I was here because I didn't want to see or hear what I was hearing about Christine's property. And that upset me greatly. And I thought she's been a wonderful person to have here in our town and to supply things to us and be there. And we all love Roberts. But this is getting to be, hey, people from all over the world, come on in. And I don't think they're necessarily going to be going to her place or, you know, our bar is way down the street. I don't think they do that, but maybe they'll bring their own booze. Maybe they'll bring their own food and they would like to sit in a nice little place like that and not even patronize places in the town. So you're really banking on that. And, you know, I think some people would, but I know there's enough of us that go to Roberts, and I hope she's doing well for that. Are you, Christine? And raise your prices. So I just don't like any of it at all. I think it's a mess when I'm looking at it, but I'm not very visually oriented. I have to be in a place. So
Well, thank you.
you're welcome.
Gilbert, appreciate it. And we're jumping over to you, Stuart.
Okay, thanks. My name's Stuart Schoenberger. I live on 348 Ramundo. I think you guys did a great job on this new concept. Listening to everybody and coming up with something that's better than was originally there. I thought at the end of the conversation last time, there was talk about having two roundabouts. And the idea that the roundabout was thrown out right for some reason. And I still don't see why. There's a lot of space there. And a roundabout, I know a lot of people have a concept of roundabouts that, you know, you grew up in Boston and they're terrible. But if you grew up in Europe or other places, you know, the technology for roundabouts has improved tremendously. And one crazy idea would be if you made Kenyatta Lane a one-way going north, Kenyatta Road a one-lane going south, Woodside Road stays the same, and then Mountain Home Road comes in, and you put that law office in the middle of the circle, you've got a lot of space there for a huge roundabout. Obviously, I'm not an architect and I'm not a transportation designer, but it'd be great to sort of think out of the box. Is there a way that you could put a roundabout there? Because you've got basically 5 lanes into one area. And this, although it's better walking and better use of the space, and it definitely, as a minimal change, it improves, it still doesn't address the fundamental problem of being on Kenyatta Road with that 3-way or 4-way or what is it, and who goes first, who goes next, and a roundabout would solve that. But that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Stuart. Welcome. And we'll jump to Zoom right after this call. So
Oh, sorry.
no, I all good. Welcome.
Anyway, I'm Eliane Popel. I live on Miramontes. And I also was wondering why the roundabout kind of got thrown away so early, because just ballparking it, it seems like we have enough space. So I wanted to reiterate, look at roundabouts. The other thing I wanted to mention is I think sometimes things can be counterintuitive. And so here, as well as when in the other part, down towards the school, we were talking about traffic calming in terms of narrowing the roads. And I just wanted to say that cars keep getting bigger, drivers are more and more distracted, we have an older population, and at least when on Cañada Road, closer to the overpass, they tried to narrow the roads, the first thing I noticed was a lot of cars are over the line. So even though conceptually it might make sense, if you narrow roads, people will go slower, I would just say, look at our population on how those measures work, especially here as well.
Thank you. We will go to the Zoom room to Suzanne. Welcome.
Hi, is it possible to have my sister Christine Roberts speak before me?
It is. Yes, we'll come back to you.
I think it would be better for the sequence of the conversation. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
You
We
raised
will,
my hand. Okay,
we will
thanks.
welcome Christine to the microphone. Hi.
I'm Christine Roberts, for those that don't know me. I manage the day-to-day operations at the market and at Cañada Corners. And parking has been a subject and a sore spot for us for many, many years. So when I was asked to be on the committee, I thought, this is, a great way to participate in the town. And when I was presented with these plans, my heart about dropped to the floor. All of them made very large changes to the parking of my business, which has suffered loss in the last few years. We lost the north side on Woodside Road. I lost 3 parking spaces to put in those 3 additional parking spaces to put in those ginormous ADA spots in my main lot. And now the thought of even losing 1 more spot is unbearable. It affects my business tremendously financially. You cannot replace parking. People will not come to your business if they cannot park. They are not going to bring their carts across the street. It's just not going to happen. So I was so happy when Concept Zero came about at the end of last meeting. This concept that puts the park across the street from the store eliminates the slip lane. How are all those large semi trucks that we get, about 8 to 10 a day, going to get themselves back on Woodside Road and back to 280? Okay. Also, a park like that, while it's nice to have a gathering space, is just going to compound not only my parking problems, but Leanne's parking problems. Because you're going to bring people that want to come to town, ride their bikes. You want to have a farmer's market next to my farmer's market with a roof. I mean, it's just not feasible. And then someone mentioned, well, Roberts could use those spots. They could maintain the park. I'm like, I'm not really seeing the benefit here for me. So I'm hoping that before we present or decide to present any plans to the community that involve making large-scale changes to my parking without understanding what the rights are, where my property lines are, where Caltrans can operate, should be tabled. I don't think it's fair to get community input on that. So that's about all.
Thank you very much,
Minutes are up.
Christine. Suzanne, can we go to you now?
Yes, sure. Can
Thank
you
you.
guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you. I'm dialing in from the East Coast, so I'm just going to say thank you for running a very efficient meeting. I attended the one last week, and it was many hours. I did learn a lot in that meeting, but so thank you for that. Good evening. My name's Suzanne Roberts Vandenberg. I'm here to support my sister in this, and I am co-trustee of George Roberts's trust, which owns Roberts Market. My sister Christine and our attorney Lee, who's going to speak after me, have spoken, and my sister speaking about the operational concerns of the business. I think Lee wants to speak to more of the legal concerns, and I wanted to chime in to talk about the financial reality of the business. Our father, George, built this business, as you know, over many decades, and he passed it on to us. That's a really difficult thing to do in our day and age, and especially in California. My sister and I have invested significantly, financially and personally, to be able to carry this legacy forward for another generation. We want to be here. We want to make the market be part of this community for years to come, but we really can't operate a sustainable business without the town's support. We need you to understand what the financial reality is of a grocery business. The plans that you presented last week are beautiful. They're beautifully drawn, and that we just saw, right, just in these few minutes. We love parks and pedestrian spaces, and they look really inviting. But what we see as business owners is a town center, and that has to make sense for our business. It can't just look good on paper. Parks don't bring patrons to our business. We have many costs. It creates parking impacts to us. And in the area, we have additional enforcement costs. We pay Mountain Patrol many hours every day of the week to come patrol our lots now, just to enforce parking. So we are very concerned that these plans would make it financially impossible to keep operating our business. Grocery stores are a razor thin margin business, and we are a dying breed. As you know, the Dragers are closing stores. They're a wonderful family. They operate great stores, but they're not opening stores. They have 2 stores left. So we're a family-run business. We're not a tech company. We don't have outside venture funding. So our business lives and dies by every customer who can't park close to us, and every delivery truck that can't make it to our delivery dock directly impacts our bottom line. We're not residents of Woodside. We have our own families to support. We're not able to live in this community, and we really can't absorb the costs that these plans propose. So the town's stated goal is to have outdoor dining. Honestly, it's a little bit ironic because the outdoor dining that we want to support is going to be supported by the restaurants in Kenyatta Corner, which would require additional parking. We've been trying to get that parking lot and that outdoor dining going. That initiative has already cost us 3 years and over $500,000 in planning and legal fees. We don't even have a permit yet. If we do get a permit, it will be likely economically unviable for us to implement. The town hasn't supported us adequately in that initiative. So if our business stays on this current path and becomes unsustainable, the trust will have to consider other higher value alternatives for this property. That's the reality. It's not meant to be a threat. It is the financial reality we want you to have in front of you as you continue through this process. And we're asking you as the council to consider how important are these retail services to the town. And we really need you to work with us before you pursue a plan with Caltrans that could really cost this community its only grocery store. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will follow that up with Ms. Prince. Hey, Lee. Lee, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, Council. This is Lee Prince. I am the land use attorney representing Roberts, which, as you know, is the main property owner impacted by the proposals in the area of Woodside Road and Mountain Home Road, what we're calling Area B. Before I get to specific comments on Area B, I want to note that the objective to prioritize residents over visitors by limiting parking contradicts the priority to provide for resident amenities like outdoor dining that require more parking to be viable, both from a municipal code parking requirement perspective and from a financial feasibility perspective. Roberts is intimately familiar with the financial difficulties associated with the impact of limited parking in this commercial area of town. As you know, Roberts has spent a significant amount of time at a significant cost to obtain a permit and defend a permit to create outdoor dining and additional parking, two items the town center area plan update process has identified as the most important. Yet at the very same time, with these proposals, the town is proposing to take away convenient parking on Roberts property, creating additional operational and financial challenges. These proposals do not achieve the identified goal to ensure the long-term economic success of local businesses. Roberts strongly opposes any loss, relocation, or reconfiguration of parking adjacent to the market. It is premature and imprudent to advance concepts that depend on incorrect assumptions about land ownership or the scope of the right-of-way, an issue that came up at the recent CAC meeting. Roberts has information, legal description, a record of survey that contradict the San Mateo County depiction of Roberts parcel as not including what we perceive as the full market property. There's a public easement over Mountain Home Road, that's correct, but Roberts has found no documentation that supports the right-of-way as depicted on the Caltrans map. The town does not only own any land at this intersection, which was another comment that came up at the recent meeting. Until these issues are resolved, it is really difficult to plan and understand what options the town may have that are reasonable and legally possible. Also want to reiterate and underscore some of Christine and Suzanne's comments. With respect to parking, even if the number of parking spaces is retained, Roberts is opposed to moving parking away from the store or across the street from the store, both from an operational and a safety perspective. Moving parking away from the storefront creates inconvenience, which results in fewer people patronizing the market. Adequate convenient parking is essential to customers' convenience and safety and the market's viability. I think the consultant called it, golden, and that is correct. Separating the parking from the market will result in other users, not market patrons, using the parking. Roberts already expends significant resources on parking enforcement, and separated parking would have no enforcement mechanism. Moving parking away from the storefront constrains parking and negatively impacts the financial viability of the market. The council should refrain from supporting any programming in this area, including a farmer's market or community event. Roberts has direct firsthand experience with the harm that competing programming causes. Every week at the Portola Valley store, Roberts loses customers and revenue on Thursday when the town hosts its farmer's market. Placing a farmer's market or similar event adjacent to Roberts Market in Woodside would replicate that harm, further exacerbating the financial challenges. Roberts is not interested in gathering space adjacent to the market. The market doesn't need people to sit and stay, but operationally needs parking turnover to allow more guests to come in and out.
Lee, thank you.
Yeah.
I think we are over, but yeah.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. I would say just in conclusion, I think it's really important to take a step back and sit down with Christine and really have the consultants in the town understand the challenges that she faces. And we're happy to do that. And until we do that, I would encourage the council not to move any of these concepts forward.
Thank you. Yes, of course. You want the microphone, Leanne? Thanks. Steve. Yeah, we get it back.
Number, it's not numeric. Down the last one, it says add 2 crosswalks to Gilbert Center Park and 5 new parking spaces. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll turn to you.
So the slip lane, which is that road you take.
I'm sorry, I don't know what a flip lane is.
Slip lane, the free
Slip
right
lane?
turn. Yes, the free right turn.
I don't know what a slip lane is.
There's a road between Alec Donald Park as it is today that takes you, it's where the trucks go. So Christine just mentioned the trucks that go out to Woodside Road, that go between your property and that traffic triangle, which is the park. So the concept here is that you create a 35-foot radius at the top of the park, which is much more gentle than it is today. And that allows the trucks to come and make that turning movement onto Woodside Road, which then releases the public right-of-way that's occupied by its current free right turn to be contributed towards the quality of that park. So we're taking land that's currently dedicated for vehicles and pushing it into a park space. Part of that land is room for 5 parking spots. And so those parking spots, which this is one idea for a plan. There could be, 30 more iterations of what that park could look like with or without those parking spaces. We thought it would be beneficial to add the 5 parking spaces, which use some of the old land that the slip lane occupies. And so those are 5 new parking spaces, in addition to the other new parking space, which is just where the white car is shown on the north side. That parking space was created by shifting the crosswalk closer to Mountain Home. So essentially, we're taking that car that was parked on the hard corner and moving it about 20 feet to the left. So that's...
You can stop because I lost you long ago.
Okay.
I don't understand what you're saying. I'm looking at, what is the green triangle, and it says Alec Donald Park on it? What is that? Is that a parking space or is that some place for people to, what is that? Green area with the blue thing in the middle?
It's the, there's the little stone
the
wall.
little tiny park that
Yeah, where
you-
people
it's not
sit.
really a park, it's just a little area.
That's right.
And you want to make it that big?
It's currently 3,000 square feet, and using the land currently occupied by the slip lane expands it to about 5,500 to 6,000. So it doubles the size of it. And again, this is in response to a long list of different and not always consensus community input. So, this is why we're here tonight, and to
Well,
hear...
you said something about having a trail to Gilbert Center, and that's what made me.
Yeah, so you see that at the
No.
bottom here, there's this crosswalk. So this crosswalk at the bottom would be a crosswalk from Roberts over to your property. Where that lane, where your driveway comes out, we're proposing you would have a crosswalk there over to Roberts.
We're just trying to, if we can create pedestrian crossings, the vehicles can better expect to know where the pedestrians will be. And right now, there's a lack of crosswalks across Mountain Home Road. And so people sometimes don't know where to cross, which means the motorist is dealing with a number of different possibilities. And this helps focus pedestrians in an expected location. And so we address this both in a scheme that retains the slip lane as it is today and the park as it is today. And then we created this alternate version, which addresses some of the community's desire to have a gathering spot in the city.
Was there a reason that you mentioned a crosswalk to Gilbert Center? When I
Yeah,
have my own people that are parking there and so on.
Well, when we talked with you, you had expressed that the traffic moving on Mountain Home Road is quite fast coming over the bridge, and they don't always see cars or pedestrians who are entering in and out of your property in your driveway. So this was a proposal to provide a safer crossing for people who are walking from here all the way down over to Roberts. And then it's also a way to slow cars down because they see people walking or they see a stop sign.
I was telling you about people that left our place, like
Right.
our tenants,
Mhm.
and they're walking over to Christine's
Right.
store.
So that would now have a crosswalk, a safer crosswalk for them if this concept was put into action.
Is there any plan here to do something about, this is my last one.
Okay, thanks.
Is there a plan here to do anything about that coming down Mountain Home Road, 100 miles an hour, and there's no sight distance at all coming out of our parking lot?
Yeah, so that is sort of what this crosswalk is all about. That crosswalk would help alert cars to slow down. You could have a flasher or you could have a sign. And then it also helps when people are turning out of your property, they'll see
I
people.
think there should be a stop sign there.
Okay, that would be part of that.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments?
I would like to talk.
Okay.
I agree that, I think Woodside wouldn't exist as we know it without Roberts. It's like it could easily turn into Sand Hill West or something of office buildings without the store there. So I do think it's important to support Roberts. I also think it's important to figure out how to make this intersection work better, and I'm not convinced that we've gotten there yet. I think it's complicated. I don't like the slip lane. It's really dangerous for me when I ride my bicycle out Woodside Road. People can't see me at such a low angle. So I think this thing we have before us is an improvement. But I don't really like the park there. I mean, I don't think this is a place where we're going to use the park. I think when I was thinking of gathering spaces, I'm thinking of the place, the little island, maybe a little bigger outside the door of Roberts, where I meet friends and I can sit and talk with them there on the way out, or it's a spontaneous meeting place. I don't think a formal park, this is really the right place for it. So I don't think we're quite there yet. The bridge coming from Mountain Home Road is slated to be replaced, and I think that presents a huge opportunity to move the road further away from Roberts and give more room to the existing parking spot there. And I think that the space gained by the getting rid of the slip lane would be a great place to add more parking, because this is really the part close to Roberts where there's a huge need for parking. And so I would rather see that, be some greenery and more parking, as well as realigning the road. But I think it's also necessary for us to evaluate the intersection to make it work better, because I'm not convinced this is enough of a change. I think the triple intersection idea that was roundly rejected actually simplifies and compacts the intersection to a degree that I intuitively feel like cars would move through there much faster, and that would loosen up the traffic from coming from the school in the morning, where there's often a traffic jam there. So moving cars through this intersection more efficiently, I think, should be our goal anyway. Ideas, obviously, this is a difficult problem.
Sure is. Thank you. Any other public comments? Valia Lubin.
I just want to back up what Steve said. I think we're not there yet. I do think that we should, as a benchmark, we should not take a single parking space away from Christine. If we're where that compact space, my little car would fit there. So in front of the tree. And if we're adding parallel parking on the north side of the store, that helps. And this concept would allow the employees who now park, from the Alec Donald Park all the way down with, maybe you designate that employees only or some way. I mean, there's other ideas, and I have mixed feelings about Alec Donald was the first road commissioner in Woodside, and the slip lane was officially Low Road after the first mayor of Woodside. So I'm sad to see the slip lane go away, but I think this concept solves a lot of problems. And regarding the park, I do see people going there with sandwiches from Roberts and a cup of coffee. So I think it's mostly locals. I think people from out of town, I'm not even sure are aware of it. So I think this is a good start. I don't think we're there yet. And I would ask the consultants, because I think Christine kind of gets it, but Leanne is having a hard time visualizing this. And if you could set up a meeting with her on the corner and walk her through it, I think at least, I'm not sure she'd agree with you, but at least she'll understand it a little better, because these are your two key players and we need to bring them along if this is going to succeed. This is our third attempt. I was on the previous two committees. I would like to see this go through, and to Ryan's point, this is conceptual, guys. The bulldozers aren't there yet. It's a long-range plan, but it would be something to look forward to, plan, and implement as we can along the way. We're okay. Thanks.
Thank you. We've got 2 comments in the Zoom, so we'll go to you, Julie.
Hi there, Julie Sakara. I am a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee, but I'm speaking on behalf of myself and likely several of my neighbors. First, I want to wholeheartedly recognize and show my support for Roberts. The last thing we'd want to do with this project is to do anything to hurt that business. I believe Roberts and the school and perhaps the church as well are really the heartbeats of our community. So, we should put their well-being first and foremost. We've been saying, and everyone agrees, that the primary focus here is the residents, or are the residents, and we are trying to get traffic to move more smoothly. While there might be some safety concerns around perhaps the need for a stop sign, et cetera, around this current Alec McDonald Park, I believe that removing either of the slip lanes, including the one here from Mountain Home, is going to cause more congestion and more of a backup for residents. And for that reason, I support the new Concept Zero, and I very much appreciate you putting it together. And I believe it does solve some, if not all, of the problems without leading to some of the other negative ramifications that might happen from removing the slip lane or some of the other changes mentioned here.
Great, thank you. And we'll go to you, Richard. Welcome. Mr. Erstad?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, so I'm a member of the committee too as well, but I too am speaking as an individual. At the meeting, we had a discussion of this intersection, the meeting a week ago, and we heard from both Christine and Leah. Since then, though, we now have written correspondence from Leah. It's quite detailed, it's quite specific. It covers the full redesign here as well. Tonight, you've heard from Leah, Christine, and her sister with additional detailed correspondence delivered to you, including a highlight regarding record of survey and boundary details that was not discussed in detail last week. I would just suggest the town would be very wise to step back, slow down, that this change is substantive and serious concerns have been raised. And I think everyone benefits, most particularly the town, if it simply goes slow here. So I understand the council has not given direction, hasn't raised questions, hasn't really weighed in here. I suggest this one item gets slowed down, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments before we close public comment? Okay, we will close public comment and move on to council deliberations for any direction that anyone feels strongly about.
I'll open it up.
Yes, sir.
And it's really simple. I'd like to see the committee put a priority on how to add parking spaces as opposed to take them away from the existing businesses downtown. We've spent a lot of time, you've put a lot of effort into designing great walkways, pathways, roadways, but it's usually at the expense of parking. And I want to say, let's start with parking. That's what starts with our businesses start with parking and end with parking. If they don't have it, they're not going to survive. And so we really need to think hard about how do we enhance the parking downtown, not take away parking places.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Wall.
Just ask for two questions for clarification, if that's okay. In concept one, I just want to make sure my understanding is correct. Is it correct that the one parking spot that is considered dangerous, it's the one kind of, that one right there, that parking spot would be eliminated in this concept, but that 5 additional spaces would be added?
It's replaced. So that, Troy, if you mark the corner, just see that crosswalk where that crosswalk is landing, that's crossing Woodside Road. That's a new location for that crosswalk. We're shifting it forward, which gives you better sight lines. The other thing it does is it adds a parallel parking space where the white car is shown, if you can circle that white car. So imagine we're driving that car like 20 feet to the left, in a sense. Like that's a new parking space that doesn't exist today that's replacing the one that's on the corner.
So are we net positive 4 spaces in this concept?
So right now we are on, and let's just talk directly adjacent to Robert's Grocery. Directly adjacent to Robert's Grocery, we're at a draw. We
Not eliminating, not
lost one, we added one. So, and then the other thing I think is important is to really push, tighten the dimension at least to 11 feet from, for that through lane and right turn lane. So we can add 12 to 18 inches to the parallel parking that's there today so that it's more comfortable because it's quite narrow on the north side of Roberts. So that's, I think, an important move to make those spaces there more usable. So we're not losing any spaces with that current configuration. And then by removing the slip lane, we're adding 5 spaces that are accessed off the public easement that is in the first part of the Gilbert's property. So this scheme adds 5 parking spaces. Now, the interesting thing that I've heard tonight is maybe there's a concept 1B that looks at not making Alec Donald Park a gathering moment, but more of a beautification moment. Maybe it's a landscape concept. If there's a serious threat to the vitality of Roberts, and it can be solved by creating a landscape moment there that beautifies the city, perhaps that's a new idea we should explore. The other new idea is if we kept everything the same on the left there at Robert's Grocery, but added more parking in lieu of that green beautification thing, that's a concept too. So, it really comes down to a question of the community's overall needs represented by the CAC, represented by the town council, represented by the community feedback. And so in the next, and taking into consideration Richard's comment. So I think we need to think about what our next steps are in terms of what ideas do we put on the table for the community, if any, around Area 2.
Okay, thank you. That was super helpful. And then one additional follow-up question. In Good City's view, by eliminating this, if we were to eliminate the slip lane, how would you recommend that delivery trucks navigate in and out of Robert's Grocery?
So currently, you can't turn a truck around the top of Alec Donald Park. It's too sharp of a radius. It's too small of a radius. Yeah. So what we've done is drawn a 35-foot radius, which is the recommendation for a 4-horse trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And so the concept is that instead of using the slip lane to get to Woodside Avenue, we take advantage of the large expanse of concrete and asphalt that you have, but we soften that corner of the park to facilitate the movement of a large vehicle. So that's the concept.
Thank you.
Yeah, the trucks essentially take a slightly longer turn off Woodside rather than the slip lane. So it's a fairly minor deviation.
Maybe just one follow-up question on parking. So when you talk about those 5 additional spots being in our right of way, but they're embedded in the Gilbert lot, which is private parking. So we'll have mission creep, right? Would we not? People might just start parking all the way through there or no? I mean, just trying to understand. what you
So
put those spots in this
the-
lot. It's,
The spots are on the public side of they occupy the former slip lane and they utilize the public easement that's right at the beginning of, so that was the thinking. That's one idea.
yeah, right.
If those 5 spots don't make sense, the community, and they're a negative to the experience of visiting the town center and shopping at Roberts, we can get rid of those 5 spots and put in sculpture, landscape. There's a lot of things you can do with that public realm.
But we're mostly repurposing the slip lane for better use, one of which is parking, as, you know, Councilmember Brown just expressed, parking is important to some.
Other deliberations or questions? I'll just maybe jump in then, just say I'm back at concept 0 just because we don't have property owner buy-in. It's very pretty, but it's not that functional, unfortunately. And the financial hardship aspect of it is a good part of the equation. I agree with Councilmember Brown. I mean, maybe there are different things to look at with maybe, I hate to say Alec Donald Park doesn't have a role anymore, but maybe you could even put parking, you know, parallel parking along Mountain Home Road there, a couple of spots, or carve it up. I don't know. I have to think about that. But the only other thing I was listening on my mind, besides advocating for just, I think what I think I've heard is just that there's not going to be, that we should slow down, that concept 0 is reasonable, that we need to respect these businesses first and foremost, and they drive this process, in my own opinion. And then just a message maybe back to the CAC, anyone saying that, you know, parking is for us and not for others, that we're not a provincial island, that we are a part of a larger community, and that our businesses require, for their economic well-being, a very welcoming environment. And certainly our peers in other communities do not have that attitude towards us when we park to go shopping in their neighborhoods. So I just want to make that point. But I'm a concept 0 person for now, because I think what I've heard is just the function that we have working is required. And so, and maybe there's just another iteration or 2 or 3 or 4 that are still to come. But yeah, I think there's just, in my opinion, there's enough pushback to say, unfortunately, a beautiful design, but not where it needs to be right now. Any other thoughts?
I liked all the designs personally. I was kind of sad to see the 3, it wasn't popular. Made sense to me to have more seating right outside of Roberts so people could, you know, buy stuff and eat. Maybe no.
It's the parking on public property. It's not even my parking anymore.
Which, and that I understand. So, yeah, one, I think, is a net even, you know, for parking for Roberts. It adds some spots. That makes sense to me. And having worked through undergrad, put myself through undergrad working, and a large part of that was delivering food, driving large trucks. I can assure you that, you know, if there's a need, you can always find a way. And even if that's parking across the street, not the most convenient, but you know, I think delivery drivers, they can figure out a way if they're creative, as I always was.
Making that turn.
Okay, yeah, so we're just gonna do deliberation.
I'm not trying to engage with anybody.
We're gonna just deliberate and make a call here. Yeah.
But I think, you know, I appreciate, I think we do need company buy-in from Christine Roberts and Leanne. I absolutely agree. And so I just want to make sure that, you know, we're not throwing away good ideas based on issues that aren't, you know, going to be there. So, and if part of the issue is, you know, creating a competing market, you know, farmers market, I think that could be worked out. That, you know, if there's interest in it and people are open to it, I think, you know, ensuring that that's not going to happen. That, you know, we can have some kind of public area where we're not going to have a farmers market. And so I would just, you know, say I agree with the concept 0. I think that could be a good option. I also think that concept one could potentially work, you know, if we work with everybody and get buy-in from everybody. But as it stands, it seems like that's not currently where we're at. So, but I like the idea, you know, and I think it's a good idea to have more parking, which that seems to accomplish that. And it seems like a nice development. So that's where I stand.
Thank you.
When we talked about the composition of the CAC, the committee, I know we went through a lot of, we wanted to get the business owners represented. It was a big deal. And we reserved spots specifically for them and specifically for the reason that's coming out tonight. Without their buy-in, this doesn't happen. And we don't have their buy-in. And I'm just, you know, I'm a business guy and I know what it means to make a payroll and that cash register has to ring. And if there isn't parking, the cash register doesn't ring and you find out that Roberts Market isn't there anymore and it's a condominium or an office building. And then you go, oh, that's not a good outcome. So I'm sensitive to those things. We have to have buy-in. I think the most interesting thing is watching the committee go from all these great ideas that they've got. And then, you know, we need traffic circles and roundabouts and we want pavilions for Pilates classes and we want picnic areas and parks. And then suddenly the reality sets in and it's like, we're constrained. We're an old town where this intersection was probably, as somebody mentioned before, stagecoaches coming down it 100 years ago, and it's bad sight lines and odd shaped roads, and it all just kind of grew up organically. We're not downtown Redwood City or Palo Alto, and we're constrained by this. And so I think we have to, you know, I'm a reality guy. I said that earlier, and so here's where we are. I'm deferring completely. I'm just, you know, I want to see these businesses not only stay but thrive. And you know, I defer to the owners there. I think that they know best about what makes their businesses work.
You can't actually, Leanne, I'm sorry. I know. Yeah. So, okay. So
I'm a minimalist. I'm concept zero.
Concept zero.
And that's what we can send back.
Further.
Yeah. So I'd like to weigh in as well. So I think my policy direction would be that more work is needed to kind of bridge the gap between concept zero and concept one. I think we heard it expressed really nicely by Steve Lubin that Woodside wouldn't exist, wouldn't be what it is without Roberts. I think we all love shopping at Roberts. We would never want to see it go away. We have to match that with the reality that this intersection has got to get better. And so I think there's some good ideas in concept one. I would also note that, you know, I think the slides indicated that concept one had the majority support from the Citizen Advisory Committee. I think, you know, business owner buy-in is really important, but so is resident buy-in. There's lots of competing concerns here. So, you know, we have to try our best to bring all of those together. I like the fact that concept one does try to address the community desire for a public gathering space. I think I tend to like the idea of expanding that park. I could imagine, you know, kids, you know, eating there after school, or, you know, residents, you know, getting a sandwich and having a place to eat. I don't know that is the community gathering space that I envisioned coming out of this process. I'd like to see what other ideas there are for community gathering spaces, because in my mind, having some additional community gathering spaces is a key aspect of the town center area plan. And we haven't, you know, I want to know more about what's proposed. I think concept two definitely creates better pedestrian crossings, which I think is a really needed improvement. I liked the idea of having a key arrival moment in Woodside. So I think more work is needed. My policy direction would be to send this back to the Community Advisory Committee, talk more. Let's see if we can bridge the gap between what the advisory committee is expressing that the residents' desire, the gap that we're hearing from the business owners. So I think we need to keep exploring this. So that would be my advice to our consultant.
So I hate split votes. So we have two people that are sort of, I picked up on our concept 0 and two people that are 0 and 1 and go back and workshop it. And Dick, other than parking, did you want to give any direction between these or just so?
I think you have to start with parking and then you evolve 1, 2, 3, or 0.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, I don't think we're there.
Okay. Does that work directionally or do you need more from us?
Yeah, I think that, well, was that a yes to the direction to slow down? So that means we'll pause.
It's back to the workshop, but I think there's, I can't tell. It looks like there's a split. I mean, but it sounds, I don't know how to angle this.
Slowing down was not the direction I took from the majority of our comments. I think let's workshop it some more to see if we can bridge interests.
My point was a bit different. It's you've got the two big business owners. I mean, we could think of anything we want. If it doesn't serve their purposes, it's a problem. I mean, it's almost a veto. I mean, look at that big red stop sign at the top of this slide. It's up there. I mean, we ignored that. That's a big deal. And we shouldn't ignore it. And I think that they have to be involved in this loop. I mean, they are, but I mean, if they're not buying in, it's probably not going to be successful.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the question is the direction to kind of pause all the engagement and go back and workshop this a little more, or to kind of pull this topic out of the engagement, continue with our planned engagement, and while kind of a parallel pathing, having this discussion on this specific intersection?
I mean, what I'm hearing, which it might be different, and I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but it's see what else you can do to workshop concept 0 to include more parking and to maybe, I'm not sure how you're going to get a park, because if you lose the slip lane, you're losing the ability to service the business. So
yes, kind of either or.
It's what Councilmember Gold said is just the constraints might be getting in the way of being able to really move anything forward here. But I think we're not saying slow. I'm saying
so. I think what I'm hearing is this is sort of maybe a separate path discussion from some of these other topics that are going to be more
That'd be a useful way to go.
the focus of this upcoming engagement, and this can be kind of a side.
This discussion needs a slip lane.
Well put. This can be kind of a side discussion with the key players.
Yeah.
And we'll keep working on it. Maybe we'll come back.
Yeah, if they have
the next juncture with Council and CAC with some other ideas. We could ask more general questions in the survey about this area, see if there are other ideas, just without showing specific concepts at this time.
And to be perfectly clear, I didn't give you my opinion of which one I like. I'm just saying I'm deferring to them because they have a lot at stake here in our town.
Agreed.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. We're going to keep going unless anybody needs a break. All right. See it is.
None.
Okay. Central Woodside Road. Currently right now, walking from the east to the west end or either way requires a lot of intermittent kind of steps. It's not a totally obvious or continuous sidewalk. There are some barriers. If you're local, you're going to know it and you're going to do it. But it might not be the best possible streetscape that's out there. So, this is something that we heard from the community. So we wanted to put some ideas out there. If you go to the next slide. So one of the key issues with this is we can't do anything until really the private landowners decide to redevelop. And so the option we wanted to put on the table was, could they redevelop and not have pull-in parking, 90-degree pull-in parking if they wanted more development capacity out of their site? We got a lot of great comments from the CAC about challenges with redeveloping very, very small parcels and the costs that come with that, and the challenges economically and feasibility. So I won't speak to that, but that's out there. But in the case that there is redevelopment and the landowner is interested, how would you coordinate that? And so we put together this concept where gradually, over a very, very long time, the street could evolve into a sidewalk, essentially extending. There's one instance of where this has happened, and you see it right in the foreground. Can you scratch on that? So basically taking that sidewalk and extending that eastward. So next slide. The other concept that came from the CAC that was kind of interesting is could we dress up the pathways that exist behind the businesses, which are also another front door for a lot of the businesses. And so kind of taking an idea of a shared street where, we're not going to be able to create sidewalks back there because of how the buildings are all at different elevations, and you're walking through a restaurant space at the pub. But what if we turned the smooth asphalt environment into something that's aesthetically attractive and conducive to walking? And kind of the key focus on that is that red diagonal line right there. And that's basically blocking it to through traffic, which was a lively debate at the CAC, whether that's a good idea or not. But essentially, you could imagine that when the village doctors closed and other things like that, you would have very little traffic back there to compete with pedestrians, and it'd be quite pleasant. Now, you could extend that concept of the shared street all the way to Roberts. People could choose to walk either along the existing pedestrian trail that follows the creek, or they could choose to walk along the storefronts of the Gilbert Center. But it's just kind of creating a visual path that has some continuity from Whiskey Hill all the way to Roberts. So next slide. And so if you look at the top left, you'll see the existing conditions, and the rendering image here adds some pedestrian treatments to the paving surface, still fully allows vehicle traffic and access to parking and keeps parking exactly the way it is, but it dresses up the paving environment to make it a little more inviting. It sets a nicer stage for the storefronts that are back there, and is an attempt to add some aesthetic beauty to that environment. Next slide. So basically, the concept for formalizing the streetscape on Woodside Road was not really supported, except just a handful of members. There was some interest in adding parking back onto the north side, but acknowledging that it's a challenging issue due to the limited right-of-way and the existing turn lane, which is necessary for the existing businesses to have parking access. The concept 2 was well received, which is the pedestrian-friendly shared street behind the shops parallel to Woodside Road.
Thank you. Questions on Area C? All right. Go ahead.
Question. So was concept 2 supported by the business owners?
Yes, in fact, it was proposed, or sort of the genesis with was one of the business owners who kind of relayed that there's been a concerted effort by multiple business owners to kind of reverse or turn their businesses back around. And so he articulated that we could kind of build on and take better advantage of those rear-facing businesses through this kind of more, interconnected concept of the back street, of the backside. So it came from the business, yeah.
And can you just explain a little bit, what does rear retail activation will need to continue mean?
Right. So that's talking about like the Village Pub, right? Kind of turned itself to the back
Oh, you're saying the orientation
Yeah.
of businesses
What-
would be encouraged.
So we had some conversation about this being an interesting idea, but to really make it a success, we would want to keep facilitating and encouraging businesses to be oriented towards that back space. That'll, create more foot traffic and more interest just in the back there. So that would be part of this effort, would be to continue supporting and encouraging kind of rear activation.
So just one question. This is the PAD, right? This is the parking area district where it's basically a mutual fund of owners. Town's only one of them. I know we're not supposed to talk about funding, but to do this, every single person that's a member of the PAD would have to agree. And then what? We would be doing an assessment or something if that's what people want, or we could find the money if people,
Yeah, it's a good question. And
it's messy.
I'm not the PAD expert, but it is messy. That I do know that much. You could, and I think anything having to do with PAD requires 50% votes at minimum. So there would be a process here. But you could, again, build this out through a combination of the PAD self-funding, or it could be a CIP for, a paving project. So you could do it a couple different ways. But I agree that the PAD offers some complexity, but I think we're not proposing to lose spaces. We're proposing to kind of beautify it. So there would be, I think, less resistance to that approach. But you bring up a good point.
The other key component, which is not expensive, is whether or not you block the through traffic. So we did hear through some of the public comment that folks love having that second parallel path, that connects Whiskey Hill Road to Mountain Home. But then there's other folks that feel like it's very fast moving traffic that creates a dangerous element for customers and for people using the trail network back there, and that they would prefer to see only the vehicular through traffic blocked, but allowing pedestrians, horses, bikes, and then also in the event of an emergency vehicles would have the ways to, like, an operable gate so that they could get through.
Am I correct that you said that there are no parking spaces none would be lost in this process?
This is an aesthetic treatment, so no changes to the parking at all. The idea is taking that pavement environment isn't obvious. People see it and they think cars, they think parking lot, and giving it a treatment that feels a little more inviting and pedestrian friendly. Certain pavers also do create kind of a textured rumble when you drive over them. And so that helps slow traffic going through there. So you can use it to also add speed calming to vehicular movement.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll close questions and jump to public comment. Richard, we'll just jump right to you, actually. The Zoom room.
Great, thanks. Quick question for Ryan and Troy. In the slide deck, in the 279 pages, there's a sheet, page 239, that shows Central Woodside Road with a scheme proposed thereon, a scheme that the committee has not seen. Has that been taken out of tonight's deck, or is it still there? Are you coming up to it?
I think you're referring to, there was a drawing of this concept 1A. We took that out since our direction was to kind of, for the sake of time, move forward. But that is basically a drawing that shows what the concept 1A would look like.
Yeah, got it. So two comments for the council. The red line in the drawing shows reinstatement of a wall that long was there. It was removed at the direction of the council in circa 1979 when the Gilbert Center was approved. The wall sits on the adjoining property, actually, the property owned by Millstone, the LLC that I'm managing member of. I'm only one member of the CAC, but I'm a strong supporter of putting that barrier, that vehicular barrier, back up, because I believe based on personal experience, this shared street sees some pretty fast vehicles, both cars and trucks. So strong support for that. And then second, I wanted to back up what the consultants are saying. Over a long period of time, starting with sort of the mid-90s when the parking assessment district terminated, the town actively sought owners of these buildings in the commercial core to enhance the downstairs, the south-facing portion of their buildings. And so that was done at a number of those buildings, with ours, with Village Doctor, with the pub building, moving the pub from its top floor location that fronted Woodside Road to the bottom floor that fronts the shared street and faces south. And then, of course, the Gilbert's building was built brand new at the end of that commercial core east end, and it has quite a southern orientation to it. So I think this whole concept fits in well with all that. Third, final comment. As far as I know, the parking assessment district does not exist. It no longer shows on our title records on both properties. It was terminated. Once the debt was fully paid off, that was a big ceremony that Susan George held, the town manager before Kevin Bryant, and it was a big accomplishment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll follow up on that pad comment. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve Lumen again. I really like the shared streets idea, and I'm not sure I think the gate might be enough. It's, this is mostly private property, and I think if people develop these properties, they'd have the opportunity to do their own paving, and I'm not sure there's any expense involved in it. Just let it be as it is, because it kind of functions that way now. Although I have no objection to paving. As far as Woodside Road goes, I think it's really a tragedy of the town. What we have there now was built by Caltrans when Woodside was fighting Caltrans building 280 through town. All the Caltrans traffic from the north was funneled onto Kenyatta Road, and the standard station that used to be where Alec Donald Park is now was removed, and this whole section was turned into a freeway. And I think it's just an eyesore for the town and a horrible place to walk. And it encourages people to speed through here. There used to be parking on the north side of Woodside Road, which the council banned when the pub used to face Woodside Road. There were a lot of people crossing the road there, and the council banned it. I think it's a no-brainer to replace those 20 parking spots or so on the north side. Get rid of the left turn lane. Have pockets to make the illustration that Richard was talking about that showed a left turn pocket, which he doesn't like, but I think would work just fine to allow those people to park along the south side of Woodside Road there. These lanes, if we treated this the same way we're thinking about area A, of it having lots of traffic calming devices, adding a couple of crosswalks here from the parking on the north side, narrowing the lanes to 11 feet. And the illustration showed parallel parking. That would lose a lot of parking. If you had a diagonal back end parking there, it would be safer than the perpendicular parking, and would provide a lot more parking. Again, this is a great opportunity to increase parking in town. So
thank you. Richard, your hand is up again. Maybe it hasn't come down, but I know you've already spoken.
No.
Is there something additional you wanted to say?
To Steve, because these parking stalls along the north sides of these buildings, all six of them, of which we own 2, those stalls are very, very important. And that preservation of that middle lane is absolutely key. For these top floors on the 2-story buildings, there has been concerted effort over a long period of time to create ADA compliant stalls at each one of these buildings to obligate somebody who is handicapped to drive past the building westbound and then turn either right on Kenyatta or left on Mountain Home, find a side street to make a U-turn on, and then come back to access these north stalls is simply taking a golden stall at the front of these buildings, facing the building, adjoining the building, and turning it into something much less desirable. Those stalls have been there for a long, long time, and so is that middle turn lane. And I made that clear in the letter that I wrote yesterday. The tenants value it, their customers, their guests, their invitees, vendors, contractors, and any sort of alteration of that middle lane, cutting it off into something less would be significantly detrimental to both of us, both LLCs. And I would argue the same argument applies to all the others there. So while I understand Steve's concerns about the width of the roadway, shoot, this is the fourth time Town Center has been studied since my family bought these two buildings in 1977 and 1987. Lots of work's been done to try to change things out there, but the constraints, as Paul mentioned earlier on another topic, Councilmember Gold on another topic, the constraints here are really substantive, really substantial. So it just is what it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments on Area C? All right, hearing none, we'll close public comment, move on to deliberations or any direction based on this page. Anyone?
I kind of like the idea of the walking space. But I'd like to understand more about how it works elsewhere in terms of encouraging pedestrian parking or pedestrian use, as well as that it does not discourage parking.
You're saying you like the shared road concept in the back?
Yeah, I kind of like the look of it.
Yep. Okay.
As far, I think concept two is essentially turning black pavement into pavers.
Yeah.
It's aesthetic.
It's not much more complicated.
No, you could have lights and stuff, but it's not,
I mean,
it's not magic.
pretty-
It's minimal. Yeah.
I'm with that one.
Okay.
I think concept two is a super cool idea. I have thought a lot about that area and how it could be improved and never thought of that. So I think it's a great idea. I think in a way it could kind of create a community space. You could imagine, like people going to the pub and being able to walk, to the Pioneer. So I think it's a really great idea. I love that the majority of the community advisory committee supported it. It doesn't eliminate parking. The businesses support it. I think there could be more opportunity in this idea of orienting the businesses to the rear and how I think I would love to see more ideas around like how then might that create opportunities for more parking along Woodside Road, maybe some vegetation screening, because I think it is kind of an eyesore, as you travel down Woodside Road. So I think I'm very supportive.
I'd also support concept two. Seems minimally invasive and it seems like a big improvement.
Great. All right. I think you've got the direction, although I think we need a little follow-up on if the pad still exists or not. So I'm looking out at Gene, but another time, not for tonight. But okay.
So just to be clear, the direction is to keep considering all the ideas here, or just
two.
Only two. So we're going to take the other two off the table from standpoint. Okay.
Onward and upward. I think we can still do it.
Okay, Whiskey Hill Road and Woodside Road, Area D. The community feedback we heard is that it's very difficult to make a left turn off Whiskey Hill onto Woodside. The other concern was that traffic doesn't tend to slow down until they reach the Kenyatta intersection. So how do we make Woodside Road slower and safer? And then how do we make that left turn not so difficult. Next slide. We presented two concepts. One was adding a three-way stop on the intersection of Whiskey Hill and Woodside, enhancing crosswalks, and then, you know, we would have to modify the approach to the little tunnel that's in the building there, but there could be a right turn into that building. The option on the left is a roundabout concept. And the concept there is the driver is really focused on one vector of movement versus, you know, when you're making a standard intersection, you're watching for both directions. So the roundabout is set up so that there's pedestrian refuge areas. So you only have to cross half the street at a time. And so the middle table is a mountable truck apron, which is very low, has a very slight rise to it, but it's a very strong visual signal that you're to drive around it. What it does allow, however, is trucks to drive over top of it or to make those turning radiuses. So that was those two concepts. The response that we got was interesting because it led to the next concept, which is something the circulation committee is already working on. And this really stemmed from concerns about congestion, that the time to travel from one side of Woodside to the other gets pretty strenuous during commute peaks. And so this one here is you could make a left off Whiskey Hill, and essentially you extend that turn lane. And so that turn lane becomes a spot where you could wait and merge into traffic when things free up. So that's a way for a left turner to get out. They only have to cross one lane of traffic at a time. So that's the concept here. It doesn't necessarily address the lowering of vehicle speeds into Woodside, but it does at least address half the issues, which was making a left off Whiskey Hill. Next slide. So there was support from the CAC with the merge lane that was mentioned. Only a handful of folks supported the three-way stop, and only a handful of folks supported the mini roundabout.
Might go fast.
They're consistent.
Any questions? All right. Any comments from the public? One Lubin and then the other Lubin.
Anything that makes people not come through Woodside with Waze, W-A-Z-E, I'm all for it. You could have stop sign every 3 blocks as far as I'm concerned, because when traffic is blocked up going north on 280, they come up Woodside Road, they turn right on Kenyatta, and it's a traffic jam. And there's times when I live along Kenyatta Road, there's times I can't even get out. So I prefer the 3-way stop. And I also think if we could figure out a way to put up some signs that says La Honda, and you turn left from Woodside Road onto Whiskey Hill, Sand Hill, Portola, and we make it so it's 20 or 25 miles an hour through town, we will get a lot less traffic. And anything that encourages that, I'm all for it. It helps all of these schemes if people are going slower, especially at the school and the intersection. I don't know, the roundabout might work, but again, anything that slows it down, and if we could long range look at diverting traffic over to La Honda from that intersection, I think would really calm things down in the center of town.
Thank you.
I was going to say pretty much the same thing, except, I mean, I think the circulation committee's scheme really accommodates people speeding into town. And I don't think that's what we really want to do. When we look at our goals, we're talking about slowing people down back at Haciendas or something. And so I think either, you know, the 3-way or the roundabout would be a big improvement, but I think even better is a 3-way stop that inflects towards Whiskey Hill Road so that it's just as easy to take Whiskey Hill as it is Woodside Road, and that will take some number of people out of town center. The issue I don't think is so much, I think what we should be trying to do is slowing people down, but eliminating the bottlenecks. And the main bottleneck is Kenyatta and Woodside Road. That, if it would be great if people were driving 20 miles an hour from Haciendas all the way to Kings Mountain Road. I think that's what we're aiming for. And to do that, we have to put some friction at this intersection. And we have to narrow the lanes in by Village Hill and make that not look like a freeway. So I think, the circulation committee's proposal doesn't do that at all. It was aimed at making it easier to make a left turn, but anyway, you get it.
Yep. Okay. Any other public comments? Area D. Hearing none, we'll close public comment. Any deliberations or correction that anyone has here?
I'll start. And to me, it's very simple. I think the roundabout is an interesting idea. Trying to explore much more carefully, but it will slow traffic coming both over from 280 as well as trying to get up Whiskey Hill. And I think it gives both of them an avenue to do that. And just slow it, but keep it moving. Moving is kind of the way I look at it.
So you're pushing concept two.
Yes.
Any other thoughts? Yeah. Go for it.
So I was a big fan of the roundabout. And I was actually surprised that it was so poorly received by the committee. I mean, they really shot it down. Pretty quickly. It was like really poo-pooed. And I was actually disappointed because I think it addresses a lot of the issues. It slows cars down, but keeps them moving. It allows people to come out of Whiskey Hill. Slowing people down before they get to our main intersection is a big deal, I think, because otherwise they're just racing through there when there's little traffic, which doesn't happen so often anymore. But one of the worst things I think you could do, I'm really against the three-way stop sign, is you're creating a dynamic where it's just going to back up the entire way. So now you won't be able to, you'll just be sitting there at the stop sign and you're going to have to wait for one space to open up in front of you. You're going to go there and it just really frustrates everybody. It's like waiting at a traffic light. The light changes and nobody moves. That's what you're going to have with the multiple stop signs. So I think that I really like the traffic circle a lot, but I changed my mind. Well, when I heard the committee, shoot it down so dramatically, I was just like, well, okay. And I thought you answered it really well, Ryan, with that you can actually, Hassan brought up the point of horse trailers and large trucks. Can a big truck make it around that circle? Yes, they can. They can actually drive over the edges of it without even affecting it. And we do see these in Redwood City. There are areas where you see them all over the Bay Area now, and they seem to work pretty well. They have changed a lot since the 1950s when they were awful. And I thought that this one was nicely designed, and I was in favor of it, but I'm not going to, fight the committee either. But I'm glad to see that there seems to be some support for it. Maybe they can revisit.
You had something?
Yeah, I am supportive of Concept Zero as sort of like a minimum way to deal with the speed and traffic issues that we all have to live with. So yeah, I would definitely support Concept Zero, although I agree with Council Members Brown and Gold. I am disappointed to see that the mini roundabout concept did not get more support. It sounds like it was supported by a handful of the CAC. I recognize that, there were some concerns about horse trailers. It sounds like horse trailers and large trucks can certainly navigate such a roundabout. So I would, as policy direction, I would be supportive of asking the CAC to take another look at this. And, really kind of, determine if we want to do something a bit more ambitious than Concept Zero.
I would agree with everyone who's spoken so far. I really like the roundabout concept. I thought it was unfortunate as well. I'm not sure. I feel like it maybe had been dismissed a little too quickly because it really does, resolve the speeding issue and also makes it easier to turn left from Whiskey Hill. So I also agree. I'm not a fan of concept one for the reasons Paul gave. I think it would just create a lot more traffic. So I'd be happy to get rid of that one. I could be okay with concept zero. I do think Steve and Talia raised good points that is gonna probably increase speeding. So not my top choice, but so yes, I would propose kind of keeping forward with 0 and 2.
Great, thank you. I think we're probably all in agreement. Yes, concept 0 is sort of the table stakes. I think maybe what the issue is, I personally feel that it'd be nice to have a creative design somewhere too, something that just welcomes you as you come over the hillside like that. It's too bad it can't have a beautiful big tree or something in the middle of it, but it seems like it can't, right? Because it's too small. It has to literally be, you're rolling over that thing if you need to.
Yeah, and sight lines and stuff, but.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
As a property owner.
As a property owner, of course, yes, we'll break the call and jump back into public comment.
You don't have, Bill and I spend a lot of time.
Can you put,
We need to talk.
you gotta talk.
Bill and I spend a lot of time in Lake County, and there, all it is are, what are those things called? Roundabouts. They're the greatest thing that were ever invented. You're absolutely right. They're safe. We have a big truck. We've had animals in the back of our truck, and they're not, I would never hurt an animal, so I'll hurt a person first before an animal. But anyway, they're great. They work really well. And I think it's something that should be considered. I was on the CAC, but I got there late. So I don't know how it came out with this, but it's one of the best things I've ever seen. And it's in the dark, and they're lit up and you can see, and yeah, it's really good. We should demand those circular things.
Well, there you go. And we have a little property owner support, adjacent property owner support.
And I'll add that if I'm coming from the freeway turning left into the bank, somebody's on my butt, it's really hard to turn left because they're like.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm for
well, there you go.
Sounds like direction is we'll ask,
back.
in engagement, we'll ask about 0 and 2 as kind of.
A little spin around.
All right.
There we go. And maybe
10:05 area E, final area.
easy, last one's easy, but.
Yes.
Next slide. So the issue here is creating a multi-use paved path. And then the second issue was whether we promote use of the tunnel, or how we promote use of the tunnel to the east side of Woodside. Next slide. So the multi-use path on the north side was supported by the majority of the CAC. The south side is very difficult due to a lot of variable shoulder conditions. So the north side, the challenge is we need to meaningfully connect it to the multimodal underpass, and just getting across Woodside Road in a safe way. Concept 2 was the open tunnel under I-280. It's currently open, but it really could use some enhancement to make it more attractive for use and more intentional trail access. Apparently it's quite difficult to get to, or it's just not inviting at all. So minority support generally, but strong support from Woodside Hill residents.
Great. Okay. Any additional questions on this? All right. Any comments from the public? Hi. Welcome, Mr. Drucker.
Okay, so because some of this probably came from me, and we were in the same place as you are, super late at night and everybody's tired. Right? We were in the same place as you guys are tonight on Monday when we discussed this. Everybody's super tired. So to put a point on it, there was super strong support from Woodside Heights and Woodside Hills residents for the path along Woodside Road, connecting from the path that's getting built right now that Lewis is working on, right? So we have a path coming from the high school to 280. Let's please extend that from 280 to Town Center. You had very strong support for that in the CAC and from those residents. The tunnel on 280, I actually walked it with my dogs today. The challenge we have, it's a great asset. It's actually possible to walk from Town Center to Barclay Park. It's beautiful. There's amazing trails the whole way. The tunnel's open, but this is not a access for like safe routes to school. It's a hiking trail. It's like hike with your dog. So it's apples and, use your metaphor, bicycles, right? So completely different. So you guys I know haven't been there and haven't seen it. So I would just, concept 2 is not going to help us provide connectivity for people and bikes and safe routes to school, but it'd be a great hiking thing to clean up a little bit.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, seeing no other public comment, we'll close public comment. Anyone want to take a shot at direction?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, sir.
I've been through that tunnel on the, I'll call it the north side of 280 and up to Barclay Park. And it is not going to be of appeal to the general public. It's just not.
Okay.
Yeah, let me echo that because it's they play it all the time. I live in Woodside Hills. That tunnel, it is not what people think it is. And I suspect that a lot of the people from Woodside Hills who mentioned that tunnel have never walked through that tunnel. First, it's hard to get there. When you get there, you end up in a place in the Glens, which is not very convenient either to get in there. So it's not kind of what it's cracked up to be. I think a better idea, this is a little bit off track here, but and it's late, is I think getting people to that north side multi-use trail from Woodside Hills would be useful. And you could do that by going to the end of Todo El Mundo and possibly getting up, that way and avoiding that tunnel, to be perfectly frank. So I'm complete. I like the idea of the multi-use path on the north side, which connects up with what Dan and Lewis are working on now with Caltrans. So that's a really good way to hook those things up and make it work right.
Great. And I'll just say the idea of, at least conceptually, somebody being able to walk to their high school is a good one. And so it's a good goal to have.
Yeah,
that's it.
Totally agree. I think concept 1 is a great idea. The kids in Woodside should be able to walk to their high school. I think we've talked about this in other council meetings. And I think there's, from what I have observed, a lot of support for a multi-use path on the north side. So very supportive of this idea.
I agree.
Perfect. We're good on concept 1. Thank you. Is there any other direction you need from us tonight?
We have a break, but we still have parking, land use, and public space. They are, however, much shorter. We only have one break and discussion point for each of those topics.
Yeah, we're going to continue. That's a good call. Is you guys okay continuing? I'm sorry, to another meeting.
I'm supportive of continuing.
Yeah, keep going.
No, you mean continuing or continuation to another?
Continuation to another
time.
Continuation.
Okay.
Yeah, I prefer to go to another time.
Okay. We're going to
continue this meeting to another time.
Another moment. But thank you so much. Yeah, it's like we tell our kids, no good decisions happen after 10 p.m. Okay. Well, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very great job, guys.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Thanks, guys.
Very impressive stuff.
All right. All we've got left is reports. So any volunteer committee reports?
Just a reminder that the May Day Fun Run pre-registration closes this Thursday evening for Saturday's event. And we highly urge everybody to pre-register so the morning of is not as crazy. Thank you.
Okay, very good.
I have one announcement.
Sure.
I was elected to be vice chair of the San Francisco Airport, the community roundtable that we participate in. They actually wanted me to be chair, but in keeping with tradition, I I broke the tradition. But anyway, that was, and the interesting thing is that Woodside, I'm going to say something probably controversial here. I don't hear a whole lot from our constituents and citizens about airport noise. I'm not saying airplane noise. I'm not saying we don't have it. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. There are people who complain about it, but this ain't Millbrae or South San Francisco or, a lot of cities that just live with this stuff. They can't sleep at night. That doesn't happen here. I haven't heard any planes here tonight either. So it's not a big deal. And I think that that it puts us in a unique position on the round table where I don't really have a dog in the fight, which makes it a little bit easier for us to assert some stuff. And we're actually already making some pretty significant changes. So I'm hoping that we'll have some good news to report on that. I'm working with Steve Rinaldi, who is the vice mayor of Millbrae and should be chair, and he is chair, and to sort of make some changes that have been involved with this group since 1999. And nothing has happened of note since 1999 that I've been there, and hopefully we can make some changes.
Wonderful, and congratulations on your position. Anything else? Okay, well, very good. Then we will call it at 10:13.